Hi, I'm Carlin Borisenko. In early 2020, I was the knitting Democrat who accidentally went viral on the internet for going to a Trump rally and then left the party. I became the conservative darling, was on all the shows, traveled around the country, and then realized that conservatives were no better than Democrats. If there's one thing that I've learned, it's that both political tribes are two sides of the same coin. But it wasn't all bad. On my journey, I became obsessed with understanding the woke ideology and the culture war. I broke the story of the city of Seattle doing segregated training with its employees.
How bad has this stuff become? The city of Seattle has now put out, I'm not kidding you, this is according to Dr. Carolyn Borisenko, who's an organizational psychologist. The city of Seattle asked its white employees to voluntarily spend a day off in a training about their internalized racial superiority.
I broke the story that led to the first ever federal lawsuit against critical race theory in the schools. I broke the Coke Be Less White story, one of the biggest anti-woke stories of all time. It got over 30 million views. Coca-Cola's corporate headquarters even had to change their outgoing voicemail.
Throughout the past few days, you may have seen inaccurate reporting on the content of our recently launched diversity, equity, and inclusion training program.
I exposed the schools in Burlington, Vermont for grooming middle school children live on the internet. They called me an unwoke cult leader for that. And the Vermont Human Rights Commission slandered me publicly as being a hate channel. I even got called a hero in Breitbart for exposing that the Washington Post was writing a hit piece on Christopher Rufo. I have broken story after story after story about what's going on in the public schools, from Cambridge, Massachusetts, to autistic sex education, to the Department of Education in Michigan, literally training teachers all over the state how to groom children. I wrote a book called Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against the woke insanity in your life. I host a podcast all about fighting back, and I'm downloading all of my knowledge to you on my Substack, carlin.substack.com. The world is a crazy place. We are literally surrounded by cults on all sides. On this show, we're going to do a deep dive into all aspects of the culture war, and I will show you the dark, dystopian underbellies on both sides. Here are the commitments I'll make to you. I will always tell you the truth. I will always bring you receipts. And if you stick with me, I promise you will see the world differently. Welcome to the cult. Please mount that like button for me and subscribe if you feel so inclined. Well, hey, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to The Cult. The Cult is a show that I stream Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on YouTube, on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, and on Rumble, where we talk about the culture war with a heavy emphasis on the far left, because the far left are winning. The far left control everything. No matter how many conservative influencers tell you that you are winning and the left is losing, they are all lying to you, and I will show you that explicitly. You don't even have to take my words for it. I will show you primary source evidence, more than you can ever watch, more than you can ever stand, more like the amount of evidence that I will show you might literally drive you insane, as it has me over the years that I've been doing this. I'm still labeled as Psychic Carlin. Hang on. I have the wrong name label. See, I was so focused on my intro. Hang on. This is important. So unprofessional. So unprofessional. So what we do on this channel is we watch a lot of far left training. We watch woke training. We watch diversity training. We watch socialism. And we do so in order to learn what the left is doing and all the ways in which the conservative right is effing this up every day of the week without realizing what they're doing. And I go into these spaces and I show you exactly what's happening when they think you're not paying attention. And that is how we learn about the left. That is how I become the teacher of what the left is doing on the internet. You don't have to like me. We don't have to be best friends. But if you come on my channel and you spend some time with me, you will learn what the left is doing, and you will see the world in a different way than you have ever seen it before. And I will show you things that none of your precious conservative influencers have ever shown you. For instance, today, we are watching a training that just got put on the internet like a week ago, but it happened back in September, but the video of it just surfaced on the internet a week ago. That wasn't what I wanted to do. No, YouTube, that's not what I want to do. Hang on. That's not it at all. That's what I want to do. Thank you. We're going to be watching. You guys know that I love nothing more than finding obscure gender training on little tiny YouTube channels that have no views. And today we are going to be watching a training that only has 21 views. And I'm fairly sure at least 3 of them are me from looking into this in 3 different browsers to make sure the sound was okay and stuff like that. And it is called Meeting the Moment: Identity Support Planning, Safety, and Educational Equity for Gender Diverse Students. Smooth Pursuit says the sheer volume of things you dig up is almost beyond belief. Well, that is what we do here. I show you the things that no one else wants to show you. I show you things that are dug up from the bowels of the internet that are hidden. I break the news stories 4 days ahead of the quote unquote real journalists who then try to claim credit for my work and say they had an exclusive when I broke the story 4 days before them because I'm digging up videos from the bowels of the flippin' internet. Why don't these get any views? Because the trainings aren't conducted on YouTube. The trainings are conducted in person or virtually in like a private Zoom. And then they put it up on YouTube later, just thinking they're putting it on their own personal page for like an archival purpose or just to have content for their YouTube channel that no one watches. But they're not doing the trainings on YouTube. They're making the strategic error of making their trainings public after the fact, because there aren't many people like me who are scouring the bowels of the internet looking for woke trainings to watch. I'm like no one else does this. No one else sits here for hours and hours and hours a week and just watches woke diversity training on the internet. So why wouldn't they put them online? It's like they don't suspect that we're going to be using this to reverse engineer what they're doing and use it against them later. I'm the one that came up with this damn strategy like 3 years ago. No one else is doing it still. But this is an interesting organization because let me read the description for you. Welcome back, Kate. Kate is here for round 2. Coming back the next day is the hardest part, Kate, I swear. This recording of the workshop, Meeting the Moment, Ensuring Safety and Educational Equity for Gender Diverse Students, was delivered by the Pacific Southwest MHTTC staff and a team of specialists in Orange County, California in September 2023. What else have we seen from Orange County, California recently? Pop quiz. What else did we watch from Orange County, California relatively recently? Does anyone remember this? This from a week ago when we did a spy stream of a government-funded training in Orange County, California, where Orange County, California government training tells parents to never challenge their children when they say they are a different gender. Orange County, California made an appearance on Spy Stream not too long ago. Spy Stream is when we go into their live trainings. We're not watching a live training today, but we went into a live training last week and we got a pretty shocking clip. We watched this training called Creating Safe Spaces for LGBTQI plus children, youth, and adults that was hosted by the government of Orange County. And I may have challenged them to answer the question of what they would do. Like, should you challenge your kids if they say they're a different gender? I asked, I wasn't disruptive or anything. And you can see how that went over on the Substack. That is content that no one else on the internet is giving you, especially not the bitches at Redux Magazine. So we're back to Orange County, California today. Let's see what this training is all about. Historically and across the nation, systemic discrimination, systemic means capitalism, and educational disparities have contributed to deleterious mental health impacts on transgender and gender diverse youth. This training offers pathways to support the educational personnel can provide trans and gender diverse students in affirming and accommodating their gender identity in elementary and secondary schools. The workshop is based on a set of resources, identity support plans, tools to support schools in planning, safety, and educational equity for gender diverse students, and led by specialists that developed these tools. The recorded workshop offers a dynamic overview of how to utilize these identity support plans to make educational, safe spaces and inclusive for all students, regardless of gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression. Meeting the Moment is designed for all education personnel and is structured into 5 sections to assist school-based mental health providers, administrators, and other professionals with the following objectives: gain an understanding of rhetoric around trans and gender diverse children and youth, California legal rights and protections for trans and gender diverse youth, strategies that work, essential methods for fostering safe spaces, blah, 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 identity support planning, and implementation of these scenarios through role play and practice. This training is about an hour and a half long, which means it'll probably take us about 4.5 hours to watch. I'm only slightly kidding about that, but that is what we're watching today. Now, I did a little investigation into our new friends at Pacific South MHTTC. They've got some other videos on their channel. This is a new one. They only put this up on their channel 8 days ago. They've got California Care Court, what providers need to know. So they're apparently doing a lot of work in California. They're obviously doing work in the schools because they've got back to school guides. Lots of stuff we can look through there. I also went onto their homepage. Now, this is a national organization. This is a national organization that has regional training centers, I guess, all over the country. And if we go into Pacific Southwest, which is the organization that we're watching, oh, what's that? What's that? This is an organization that sells tools to support equity and mental health for gender diverse students, and they sell this to schools. So one can assume this is paid for by your taxes because it's specifically targeted at public schools in California. So one can assume if you live in California, and especially if you live in Orange County, because this training took place in Orange County, you can make the assumption that everything we're going to see in this training is currently taking place in your kid's public school. Congratulations and you're welcome. That's why we watch professional development trainings. People might say it's boring. People might say we're wasting our time. We spend dozens of hours a week doing this crap. But magically, this is how we know more about what is going on the left than any other person, because we listen to their professional development trainings, and all of this stuff is being disseminated into the schools and in organizations through the professional development trainings. So that's why we do this stuff. We are always amazed at the many ways in which our tax dollars are being used. Well, not my tax dollars in this case. I don't live in California because I'm not dumb. But if you're in California, your tax dollars are funding this. Congratulations. So that is what we are watching today, guys. I hope you will stick around. Please do make sure to mount the like button for me. Are we going to get any of the BLM week of action trainings for next week? I probably should. Now, if you guys are interested in BLM, you can head over to the Substack, which is Carlyn, Karlyn, .substack.com. And actually, last week, I think the first, where is it? Did I do this last week or the week before? Must have been the week before. If you're interested in what here it is. January 17th. I did this like a week and a half ago, whatever. So I think I was actually the very first person on the internet to release a comprehensive look inside the 2024 BLM in schools guide, because I got a hold of the guide within like an hour of it being released. when it was released on January 17th. So I have the entire BLM in education 2024 guide over on the Substack. I broke it all down for you guys. Now they obviously do attack capitalism. They attack capitalist policies in the schools, and they also do, of course, attack the nuclear family. If you want more about and look for this article, 2024 Black Lives Matter in Schools Guide, calls to abolish capitalism and the nuclear family. Will we watch any of their action trainings for next week? I may have a line on Spy Stream. I may. I'm pretty sure I do. I'll look into some BLM stuff though. We'll make sure we do that. That's probably responsible given that we are about to enter Black History Month, which I actually don't fundamentally have a problem with there being a Black History Month. I think all of the conservative that we're about to see over the fact that there's a Black History Month is going to make everyone look really racist. I don't care if people learn about Black history; it makes no difference to me. I care if people learn about socialist history. That's all I care about. Black history is not socialist history. Socialist history is not Black history. Those two things can both exist separately from one another, regardless of what the socialists say, because the socialists are the ones who created Black History Month in the first place, and they think all Black people should be socialists, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, our friend Jesse Hagopian, who, again, I'm the only person on the internet that's following Jesse Hagopian. Jesse Hagopian is on the board of Black Lives Matter in Education. He's on the Zen Education Project. He works for an organization called Rethinking Schools. Rethinking Schools is... Rethink Schools is the organization that released this article that I went through last week where they were blatantly indoctrinating kids into equity. But of course, no one else is watching him either. Mark, that is a dumb ass question. They say there's no such thing as a stupid question. That's a stupid question, Mark. That is a stupid question. Oh, Terry went to schools in Orange County, California. Yeah, it was different for all of us when we were in school, Terry. I'm very sorry. Anyway, guys, if you want to support the work I'm doing and keep me in business, because the only way that I'm able to spend this much time watching leftist training, breaking down leftist training, explaining it, writing the articles on my Substack, doing more investigative journalism than certainly the feminists at Redux Magazine, but most people on the internet going undercover at these events to show you what's going on. I'm going to be going undercover at a gender ideology conference in a couple months. Thank you guys for making that dream come true. I was able to crowdfund for that quite easily. I do really appreciate it. I'm currently putting together a list of all the gender conferences in 2024 I want to go to, because they've just started announcing the dates for them. And oh my God, there are so many. I want to go on a nationwide tour of gender ideology conferences where I just go undercover, like at place to place, and just record everything and put it all on the internet. This is what I love to do more than anything else, and I really appreciate you guys making it possible. The way you make it possible is by heading over to my Substack, which again is Karlyn, KARLYN.substack.com, and you sign up for a monthly membership for $8 a month, or you sign up for an annual membership for $80 a month. There are other ways you can make gifts too. You can donate subscriptions, you can give gift subscriptions, stuff like that. And if you want to make a one-time gift, head over to my main website, activilyunwoke.com/support. I will put the link in the chat. And you can make a one-time gift by scrolling just down a little bit. Time gifts of support there. I do really appreciate it, guys. I cannot do this without you. I think I'm going to be starting a new membership drive coming up, because the reason that I prefer people, and I appreciate all the one-time gifts coming in lately. I really, really do. The reason I prefer people become monthly or annual members of the Substack is because it creates predictable income for me. So I can say, I have this much money to play with, and that means I can go to this undercover event. I can be able to farm out the resources, where if I'm just relying on one-time gifts, it doesn't work out as well, because I can't plan ahead for that. Even if the gifts are really big, which I love the really big ones, guys, I really, really do, and I'm very appreciative. But when I have reoccurring gifts, it actually allows me to plan. Everyday Therapist says maybe you should set yourself up as a nonprofit. No. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I really do wish I could. I wish I could set myself up as a nonprofit to give you guys the tax break. I really, really, really do. Here is the problem. The moment I set myself up as a nonprofit, number one, I'm not allowed to express any position on political candidates, which I am unwilling to do. And number two, and this is actually more important to me, the federal government would be able to nose in to every single thing that I'm doing and control all of it. And it could be taken away from me in a second. And I know that this is upsetting to people. I really, really do, because I know people want those tax breaks. I would love to be able to give you those tax breaks. I really would. But if I give you those tax breaks, I open the door for the government to worm their way in and F up every single thing that I'm doing. I feel very, very strongly activism needs to be entrepreneurial. It needs to be privatized. So I absolutely appreciate the gifts, and you've been so generous in your support, Everyday Therapist, and I really do thank you. But I also need to make sure that I'm protecting what I'm doing so that it has like the least amount of external interference as possible, because the moment it starts with external interference is the moment it all goes down. So, life's unfair, and that's just the way it goes. Guys, another way you can support my work is by heading over to, don't think I haven't thought about it. I understand it was a smart thought, and I understand why you suggested it. Don't think I didn't think about it, but in the end of the day, I was like, I can't. It's too dangerous. Gabs would tell you the same thing. It's too dangerous. She did the same thing with her business as well. Anyway, another way you can support the work I'm doing is by heading over to the Unwoke Art Store. And this is important, guys, because there are a couple of designs that aren't going to be in the store for much longer. We have the Trump Grab Them by the Heart mug available until February 3rd. It's on 2 different mugs. It's on stuffed animals. It's on wrapping paper. It's on Valentine's Day cards. These are for your Valentine's Day gifts. These are only available until Sunday to make sure that it has time to ship out to you in time for Valentine's Day. So if you want to give the Trump lover in your life a nice little present that will absolutely make them smile, you can get that on the Unwoke Art Store right now. But more importantly, I have 2 limited edition designs that are leaving the store at midnight or thereabouts, but definitely by tomorrow. Okay. First off, we have the limited edition Unwoke Wiki January 2024 design. We will be coming out with a new Unwoke Wiki logo tomorrow. So this Plague Doctor will go away, and he will be replaced by another version of the Plague Doctor, which is going to be very colorful, and it has space and flowers and is a little bit surrealistic, and it looks really, really cool, and you guys are going to love it. But we're replacing our black and white friend here with a new logo. On the back of the shirt, it says the socialist revolution is real and directs people over to the Unwoke Wiki. The merch designs are how I am funding that project. So you can get it on a t-shirt, you can get it on like this baseball shirt, you can get it on a hoodie, you can get it on a sticker. All of that goes to fund the Unwoke Wiki and to keep that online. So I really do appreciate it. You get cool limited edition merch. There's going to be a new logo every single month all around the Plague Doctor theme. And so each month you can get a new one, or you can just get the ones you like or whatever, but they're a limited edition. When they're gone, they're gone. That's just the way it goes. Also, the limited edition Whiteness Means Capitalism with Steamboat Willie is also leaving the store tomorrow. I love this design. This design is so cool. Like I've ordered some for myself just to have it. But it is a special limited edition, so it's going out of the store tomorrow. If you want your Steamboat Willie says Whiteness Means Capitalism, you got to pick it up today. Get it on t-shirts, hoodies, all sorts of stuff, sweatshirts, blah, 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 all the different things over in the Unwoke Art Store. And of course, all your purchases do go to support the work I'm doing, and I really appreciate it. And I have one other very, very special design that I'm kind of doing a soft launch today, but it'll officially launch tomorrow. So yesterday, I found out that I have been put on a list. I know this is shocking to everyone that I would be on a list, but apparently my good friend Justin O'Donnell tweeted out last night that an organization called Granite State Progress in New Hampshire, which is basically like one woman who runs around New Hampshire complaining about libertarians, and that's like all this woman does. But Granite State Progress is putting together a list of radical anti-democracy extremists in New Hampshire, and there are over 500 people on the list. And they had a Google Doc. Now they've since made the Google Doc private, but for a while there, they had a public Google Doc with the list. And I am pleased and proud to report that I'm on the list twice. I'm on the list because I technically, though not really, ran for governor for the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire in 2022. I say not really because it wasn't a real campaign. It was literally just, I put my name, like I told them they could use my name to have someone on the ballot, and I didn't really do anything, and I didn't really run for governor, and I obviously wasn't expecting to win. But I did. I was on the ballot and everything. And so I got my name on the list for that. And then apparently the only thing that is really required to get your name on this list is to post about a libertarian event, because the other reason I had my name on this list is I made a post about PorkFest, apparently, which is extra funny because I'm really like upset with the people at the Free State Project. I think the people running the Free State Project suck now. The people running the Free State Project scared away new movers from my community because they were such dicks. And so I don't even like the Free State Project anymore, and still, they're those assholes are getting me on a list anyway. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Instead of being upset that I was put on a list twice of anti-democracy extremists, radical anti-democracy extremists, I instead decided to do the only sensible thing, and I created a t-shirt. I created a brand new design that will officially launch in the store tomorrow, but is up in the store today in case anyone wants to pick it up. It's going to be on a variety of merch, and it says radical, anti-democracy, extremist. And this design looks really cool on the t-shirts. And I've got a bunch of different colors for the t-shirts. You can get it in a gray or this cardinal red, or I actually like this dark gray heather. I think I might actually get it in that instead of my usual black. I can put it on Kelly green. I love Kelly green, and I never get to make merch with Kelly green. And so it works on that color. And it's in purple, and I've got it in military green as well. That looks cool. So you can pick up if you want to embrace your inner radical anti-democracy extremist. You can pick up that shirt in the Unwoke Art store, and I will officially launch it in February, but it's soft launch now because that's just the way it goes sometimes. And I hope you guys appreciate it. I think it's a cool shirt too, Bot. I'm pretty excited about it. And so thank you to Granite State Progress for putting me on your list twice. I do appreciate it. Yeah, Grandma Nay, the heather gray looks cool. The heather gray looks cool. You know? Always use things to your best advantage, guys, and I will profit off of being put on a list of radical anti-democracy extremists. Because as we know, when socialists say democracy, they don't mean democracy, they mean socialism, because what socialists believe is that the only true form of democracy is socialism. And so really, you'll be in on the joke, because when you get the shirt, you will know that the shirt actually says radical anti-socialist extremist when you're speaking the language of socialist. But of course, socialists have to cover their language because they speak in a coded language. So it says radical anti-democracy extremist instead. I think both are cool. I'm going to wear mine with pride all over New Hampshire. And Xandra at Granite State Progress can fillet a cactus. I don't really care how she feels about it. All right. With that out of the way, let's get into our presentation. Please make sure you mount that like button for me. Again, I stream Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Let's see what they're teaching the educators of Orange County, California in regards to educational equity for gender diverse students.
Here for the Meeting the Moment training. I am here as a representative of the organization that is hosting this training, which is the Center for Applied Research Solutions, known inevitably as CARS.
Wait, so what is it? The organization that is hosting this training, which is Applied Research Solutions. Okay.
Which is a terrible acronym because you pretty much cannot Google us. I am also here representing the project, which is funding this, which is a SAMHSA funded project, and it is the Mental Health Technology Transfer Center, which is a mouthful. We're just about to start year 6 of the project, so I can finally say that pretty much in one breath. So this project, the MHTTCs are a network of regional centers. So we are pleased to be the TA provider for Region 9, which includes California, Hawaii, Nevada, Arizona, and the Pacific Islands. So our mandate with this project, the federal government has tasked us with supporting regional.
Oh, wait, what was that? Hang on.
With this project, the federal government has tasked.
The federal government has tasked us. So all of this is funded by the federal government, is what I just heard. Everything we're going to watch today is funded by the federal government, which means we're all paying for it. And it's in its 9th year. So what does that put us at? That puts us at 2015. This started under Obama. Not that Obama started this stuff, because he didn't. All this stuff started way before him. I don't want to give that impression. But this program started under Obama.
Us with supporting the regional behavioral health workforce, which when we started this, we were like, what does that even mean? It's a broad mandate. We provide a lot of different services through this project. We're primarily a technical assistance and training organization. So we do webinars, we do resource development, we do tools and tip sheets and resource lists. We also do some level of individual TA consultation. So if you have a question and you need a thought partner or some resources.
Why would the federal government do this kind of thing? Because Barack Obama is a socialist, and Barack Obama was always pushing these types of policies through the government. And so Barack Obama, so leftists don't want the current federal government to exist, right? So, and guys, so Kate is relatively new, so we need to bring her up to speed. So I don't want anyone to we know the answer to this question. New people don't know the answer to this question. So the 4 goals of the woke left are always and forever the same. Gain as much power as possible, destabilize the system, attack capitalism, usher in their Marxist utopia. So when you're asking a question of why are they doing these crazy things? You always want to come back to what the 4 goals of the left are. So let me walk through them real quick, and I'm sorry for people that this is a repeat for. Their first goal is to gain as much power as possible. That means getting into positions of institutional power, because they gain institutional power by getting into jobs that they can't be fired from, and they use that power to implement laws and policies that are beneficial to the other 3 goals that they want. Now, Barack Obama got into his position by getting elected. That's political power. It's not to say they don't do that. They do that when they have the opportunity. And of course, getting Barack Obama into the presidency was a really big milestone turning point for the left in this country. When Barack Obama got elected into the presidency, it was a turning point in terms of they started making, they basically rolled out equity programs in school districts all over the country. So equity was already in the schools before that. But once Obama got into office, that was when the really big push started to create equity departments all over the country. So they used his position of political power in order to gain more institutional power by getting people in to decision-making positions. Moving into goal number 2, destabilize the system. They use those positions of power in order to create laws and policies that cause problems. Destabilization is a feature. It is not a bug. They need to destabilize the system. If they don't destabilize the system, they can't execute goals 3 and 4. What do I mean by destabilizing the system? They train teachers all over the country how to teach students that they are trans and non-binary when they're in kindergarten. That's going to start to destabilize the system, because at some point that's going to start to destabilize just cultural norms in our society. It's going to destabilize the nuclear family. That's going to start causing a lot of problems. Okay? Any crazy thing you see, from the left supporting riots to the left defunding the police, that is all to destabilize the system. When the system is destabilized, normal people start thinking that things suck in the world. They're like, all of these problems are happening, and this sucks, and I don't like this. And when they do that, the left moves into goal number 3, which is to attack capitalism. And what they say is, do you know what the real problem here is? It's capitalism. Capitalism is the thing that has caused all of these problems. Capitalism is the thing that is causing all of your pain. And all we need to do to get the pain to stop is to remove capitalism. And then they say, how about we replace it with Marxism? Do you want to try Marxism? Because capitalism sucks. Capitalism creates all these problems. Why are we even doing this? Let's try Marxism. So doing training like this, funded by the federal government, which Barack Obama had been running for many years at that point, this was in his second term that this stuff started, staffing the entire federal government with people that are friendly to him and his policies, which are extremely, extremely, extremely leftist. Why would they do this? To destabilize the system so they can use the problems to attack capitalism so they can usher in their Marxist utopia. That's always the pattern. Every single thing that you see the left doing follows that pattern. So if you memorize nothing else, you got to memorize the 4 goals of the woke left. Gain as much power as possible, destabilize the system, attack capitalism, usher in their Marxist utopia. Exactly. Infiltration and destruction, but it's not just destruction, Kate. It's destruction with a purpose, because they need to pull down the current system in order to replace it with Marxism. They cannot have Marxism because we do not have socialism in this country. We have socialist policies, but we are not in a system of socialism right now. We're not. They want to get us there, but they can't get us there until they completely abolish private property, which is capitalism.
Feel free to hit us up. We have a lot of really great school mental health folks on our team who would be happy to connect. And now what you've all actually been waiting for is my absolute pleasure to introduce
she, they.
For today.
There's a she, they.
But before we do that, I just want to take one moment.
Look at this. Our she, they, which means that they're non-binary, which means Lindsay here is a socialist. Heidi is a she, her, which is probably means Heidi is a progressive, useful idiot. But Lindsay, I promise you, is going to be a socialist because she's not. She, they is non-binary, and non-binary always means socialism. And isn't it nice that Lindsay, the socialist, has a master's in social work? That's just great.
To say how this came to fruition. I think many of you may have known Heidi and Lindsay from the excellent work they have done through our contract with HCA. This content that they developed has been presented in various forms and webinars and other kinds of trainings and open houses. And this is material that I think is so, so important. And when I was talking to Lindsay a little bit before the training, I was thinking about the years that this has been in the making. And we, when we did these online versions of this, or these webinar-based versions, we heard from all of you that you wanted and needed this training to happen in person, and that there were school leaders in Orange County who needed to know this content. And so I'm so happy to see you all here. And
there were school leaders in Orange County who needed this content. Okay.
Further ado, I will introduce.
Let's see.
And Heidi.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Hi. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. It's so great to see you. There's a lot of familiar faces and some new faces. I'm excited to see you all here today. I just wanted to start by thanking Miranda and Cars and the whole team there, Ingrid, Tina, who's walking in, you met downstairs, Stephen, who's back there, headphones, for making this happen and for flying down to, make an event out of it, and also for believing in us and for taking a chance on this content. You can tell by the name that we gave the training today. I think we're all aware that this is some tough stuff, especially right now, in our moment that we're in. So hopefully today we can give you some tools to take out and really kind of meet the challenges that we're facing supporting these kids.
So yeah, it's just so great to be here with some old friends and some new friends. And we knew that for this training, we needed a new kind of title, if you will, and that's what we added, Meeting the Moment, because we know that right now, a lot of intense debate and conflict around supporting our most vulnerable students. And I really want to thank everyone for being the leaders that you are, for being here today, taking a stand and being prepared and asking for the tools to support these students. And we've been And we prepared a nice little kit, if you will, of strategies and supports and information that will help you in your goals.
You mentioned, I think that the time that we're living in right now is unprecedented in so many ways, both in positive ways. The supports that we're able to offer really have come so far, and the work that we're doing has really come so far. And at the same time, we're facing some pushback, right? And we know in our local county, there's school board conversations that are happening, and our kids are kind of stuck in the middle. A lot of times when we train, we talk about risk data.
Hang on. Terry, I know you mean well, but we don't do that here. And I'm going to tell you why. Because conservatives have an inclination to fat shame and call women ugly that they don't like. And do you guys know how many votes you guys lose simply because you fat shame and you call women ugly that you don't like? Republicans have permanently lost my vote because of this bullshit. Like, I will not vote for a party in any way, shape, or form, and I don't care if the left wins or not, that I have to hear commenting on my looks every single day. Literally every single day. So we don't do that. We only maybe comment maybe in a fat studies presentation. That's it. But like, even the fact that it's mentioned though, like, conservatives, you got to stop doing this shit. I mean, I know they won't. I know that is a lost cause. Most of them don't know how to do anything different. But like, do you guys know how off-putting that is to independents and disaffected lefties and all the people that you're trying to get change their minds? It's like, have you seen conservatives? I've been to conservative events. You guys aren't skinny. You're not. You're really not. So why do we perceive that as a priority? That's just, I'm not trying to embarrass you or anything, but that's how I feel about it.
Risk and prevention data, and basically what the lived experiences are like at school for our LGBTQ plus or our queer population or transgender and gender diverse specifically. But one thing that we want to kind of focus on today is how kind of the rhetoric that we're hearing in this public conversation that's happening around transgender and gender.
So you're suggesting that conservatives are no better than the left? Because I thought you guys were supposed to be better. You're saying it's okay for you guys to call people names because they call you names? Like, are we children? Are we ever going to fucking grow up? Are we ever actually going to act like the bigger people? Are we going to act like people? Are you guys ever going to start acting like Christians? Are conservative Christians ever actually going to start acting like Christians? Or am I asking too much? Because when you act no better than the left, you prove the point. You're no better than the left. Don't make excuses about why you can't do the right thing. I don't want to hear them.
Diverse, specifically minors or children, what that's doing to those kids, right? So what we know is that they are affected by this rhetoric. When we look at the data, what we see is that bullying has actually gone up in the last couple of years. And a lot of times what we also see there is that where the students are reporting feeling harassment is from adults, that there's been an increase in that as well, right? And that might be other kids' families, that might be staff, right? So they're in a position where they're fielding this stuff. Everybody's having a public conversation about them that is quite frankly...
Conservatives, if you want to spend all the time in our presentation today justifying calling people fat and ugly, you're welcome to do that. And what I will do is every single time someone mentions it, I will pause the presentation to say that calling people you don't know fat and ugly is not Christ-like, and you look like fucking hypocrites every single time that you do it, and you're driving away votes every single time that you do it. But if this is the hill you want to die on, conservatives, that you just want to defend your right to call everyone you disagree with or even think you disagree with fat and ugly, you go right ahead and you will lose every single election for the rest of your lives, and people like me will laugh at you when it's happening and say you fucking deserve to lose because you just couldn't rein in your fucking impulse to call people fat and ugly. If you want to shame people, I can shame you right back. Are you in fucking kindergarten? If you're not, then there is no excuse for calling people fat and ugly. I mean, I've been reporting that it's going on, so if they don't know, they're not listening, probably because they're too busy calling people fat and ugly. Can we move on now? Everyone good? Everyone got that out of their system? Ready to go?
Not so informed about them or their experience, and not so gracious in the way that they're talking about them and their right to exist, really, in public. So one of the things that a parent said when she was talking about what it's like for her child to go to school, she said, it's like, sending my kid into a hailstorm every day, like just walking through a hailstorm.
So I don't know about you, but sometimes I have to put myself on a news diet because, the news can be so overwhelmingly negative and I can feel it kind of internalized.
This is a good time to remind people that I have rules in my chat. Number 1, don't be a dick. Do not insult me. Do not insult other people in the audience. I can do whatever I want because this is my channel and you are in my house. And if you don't like it, then you can just leave. The number 2 rule, which we're dealing with right now, Iris, is no whining. No whining. You are not in elementary school. Restrain your feelings. I don't want to hear whining as I'm watching diversity training. I don't have children for a reason. I certainly don't want adults in the internet whining in my ear. If you don't want to be highlighted, then don't chat in because I interact with my chat. I pay attention to the chat. If you don't like it, don't chat in. It's really that simple. Oh, we know that I love nothing more than when I call you out on whining in my chat and you respond, I'm not whining. Everyone knows this is my very, very favorite thing to have happen. And we're 5 minutes into this presentation and we've already veered off into the land of retardia. Iris, if your skin is this thin, you're not going to fit in here. If you want to learn, what you need to do is to rein in your feelings, listen to what I am telling you, and pay attention to what's going on.
And affecting me and my worldview because I like to stay positive. And so if we let a lot of what we see in the news, because it does kind of focus on that negative, we start to believe or have misperceptions. And so you see here headlines that indicate or demonstrate that districts are not changing policies like a domino effect. Everyone is not bending. The majority of districts in California have stuck to the supportive, inclusive policies, best practices for LGBT students. You can see here 19 have been recognized for outstanding support. LAUSD is second largest district in the nation, standing strong.
LA
and
Unified School District.
County. And so we just want to bring light to this, that sometimes when we hear too much of the wrong things, we get that wrong idea. And so you're here meeting the moment, but so are many of our districts. And that's because of the great staff they have, like you.
They work with the LA Unified School District, so we know that now.
So right now I want to just kind of have a discussion with you, a little bit of a conversation about some of the myths that are coming up. We're calling them like myths of the moment, and think about ways that you can speak to those from your positions.
Myth number 1, schools are hiding things from parents by not telling them when kids come out.
What do y'all think?
What was the district that was saying that they want parents or teachers to, it's orange?
Right.
Yeah, that's really close to them. They want them to report to parents. It's the kid that's hiding.
I had an ally type training at one of my middle schools, and this was a question of one of the staff members asked, one of the teachers asked, almost word for word. And she even said it was my perspective, I'm a parent, and I worry about my student, my child having these conversations at school with that.
Anyone else? How many of you are parents? Same. Of course we want to know what's going on with our kids, right? Of course we want to know. And also, if my child doesn't feel ready to tell me that, I want to know that if they are in desperate need for help, they're going to find it somewhere in the village.
Oh!
So I've been doing this work for a long time now. And
okay, that they had some weird editing in that. So it was a little unclear what just happened, but it seems as though they were trying to talk about the so-called myth that schools aren't telling parents like when their kids are using different names and pronouns. And so what the trainer said is, I'm a parent too, and I'm worried about that too. But I also want to know that my kid can find someone else to help them in the village if I can't, or something like that. So it was like the takes a village thing. Let's just go back and listen to that again, because that was weird, and they did some weird editing, and I just want to listen again. I apologize if this bores people.
From your positions.
It's number one, schools are hiding things from parents by not telling them when kids come out.
What do y'all think?
What was the district that was saying that they want parents or teachers to, and it's orange?
Right.
Yeah, that's really close to home. They want them to report to parents. It's the kid that's hiding.
We had an ally type training at one of my middle schools, and this was a question of one of the staff members asked, one of the teachers asked this, almost word for word. And she even said it from that perspective, I'm a parent, and I worry about my student, my child having these conversations at school.
Anyone else? How many of you are parents? Same. Of course we want to know what's going on with our kids, right? Of course we want to know. And also, if my child doesn't feel ready to tell me that, I want to know that if they are in desperate need for help, they're going to find it somewhere in the village. So I've been doing this work for a long time now, and really, honestly, it's been a privilege to get to focus on this work almost exclusively for about the last 10 years. And working with these kids, why do you think they come out at school first?
Is support when you're safe. So,
they don't always come out at school first, but a lot of times they do. Most of the time they do, right? I think it's about 6 in 10. And that's across intersectional data. And it also doesn't necessarily, like, for example, if they have parents that they think are going to be supportive, or a family support network that they think is going to be supportive, that doesn't mean they're going to come out at home first. They still might come out at school first. Why? Because they can lose us. That's okay. That's okay. Because home is more important, more crucial, more critical to their survival.
Really? These gaslighting trainers are really telling people that it's actually better if kids come out at school first instead of telling their parents, because the only reason they're doing that is their parents are more important to them than school is.
And their emotional well-being, right? It gives them the opportunity to try it out. It gives them the opportunity to have this conversation out loud with an adult human almost before doing it with such a high level of risk. Does that make sense? As far as schools hiding things, this is not true. We're required to follow laws, and there are laws about what we can share and can't share.
What are those laws?
This is not the only thing that we're not allowed to share, as y'all know.
They're not allowed to share.
So also,
in California, they are not allowed to share this information. In fact, the Attorney General of California is right now suing a school district because the school district was like, F you, state of California. If this stuff is happening in the schools, we're going to tell the parents about it. And the Attorney General of California is literally suing that school district to prevent them from disclosing this information to parents.
There's lots of stuff. A student can leave our school site and go to a medical clinic and get reproductive care, and we can't say a word about that. They don't need parental consent. We don't need to call their parents and tell them. In fact, we're not allowed to, right? So this is not the only thing. There's several things that we can't share by law. It's not like we're just deciding, right? Another thing that I think is important is that when we're doing identity support planning, we know that the bigger this kid's support circle, the better off they will be. So we don't want to exclude anyone. We want to bring everyone into the process at the student's comfort level. So that's a conversation we're constantly having. You know, do your parents know? Does your family know? Who do you live with? Why or why not? Is that something that, you know, we can help you with? Those kinds of things. Okay. Any questions on this one? All right.
All right, next one. Learning about queer people will cause kids to change their identity and become queer or trans, e.g., me, Delia, activism.
Yeah, and I hate to put those kinds of words up on a PowerPoint, but these are words that we hear at school board meetings now. So I think it's important that we call it out because it's what's being said by trustees, right? What do y'all think about this one?
Perpetuates the fear. I think when I hear it in my previous unnamed district board, they're trying to stem this fear within a community that this may I mean, this is my personal opinion, may or may not be happening. And I think that perpetuation of this fear gets possible unknowledge, I can't think of a better word, of the families that are unaware of this to be fearful.
Correct, Terry. Correct. Very good.
Religious families as well. We've also they kind of are just fearful. I think they don't have the knowledge, and so they just dive into it.
Yeah, there's this contagion fear, and that's been popular for decades, right? It kind of keeps coming back. But identity is not contagious. You can't catch your identity. You are who you are, right? This is not how that happens. Also, one thing that we do know is learning about different types of people increases civility, empathy, understanding of others.
We just want them to have more empathy.
Yeah.
Community.
If learning only about cisgender and straight people made you cisgender and straight, we wouldn't be having this conversation in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
No one in my generation would have ever come out. Also, just to be clear, that equating queer people, and when I say the word queer, y'all know that I mean like an umbrella term, right? You might be familiar mostly with LGBTQ.
You mean a political ideology.
Our training, we talk a lot about transgender or gender diverse, and then you might hear us use the word queer, and that's kind of like an umbrella term for all of those things. But equating queer people with these terms is highly offensive and extremely inaccurate. Okay.
Whatever calls someone a groomer.
Schools are providing hormones to kids without parental knowledge.
So I know, you're in a room of school people if you get laughter on that one, right? But people think this. Actually, I've had school personnel tell me this, that's what the wellness centers are built for. And just so that obviously this is categorically false. We can't even give Tylenol to kids. Cough drop. No. I have a 10-year-old who had like a SPF.
See, what they're doing in these presentations is they're taking things that are happening, but they're twisting them slightly to make it seem absurd. So do I think that schools are giving gender-affirming hormones to kids? No. I don't think that schools are giving gender-affirming hormones to kids. I don't think there's any evidence of that. I don't think that even makes sense. It's not like the school nurse has those sitting in her desk drawer or something like that. It doesn't make any sense. However, are schools providing the playground on which children are socially transitioned? Yes, they are. They're doing it in the classroom. They're doing it in after-school clubs. So do you see what they did? They didn't say that, they're teaching kids about non-binary and gender and sexuality alliances. That's obviously a myth, because that's what they're doing. She said, they're saying that we're giving them gender-affirming hormones. Ha, 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 ha. We can't even give students a Tylenol. But that's not what they're doing. They're teaching kids through classroom, through curriculum, through after school activities that kids are told not to tell their parents about, through gender sexuality alliances, through rainbow clubs, through that sort of thing. They are socially transitioning the gender of students without informing the parents. That is what's happening. And making it about whether or not they're getting hormones is the trainer's way, the she-they trainer's way of twisting things just slightly so on video they can say, that's absurd, we would never do such a thing.
Chapstick that was confiscated at school because it was medicated, right? I mean, we have nothing to do with this stuff at school. And just so that you know, for the sake of having the knowledge to share if you need to, there is not one state in our country where you can access hormone therapy without parental consent. Okay? Any questions on that one? All right, so let's talk a little bit about the law. How familiar are y'all with the law? Show of thumbs, like you got it down, you've been looking at it forever, not sure, don't know it. Okay, cool. So we've got like some mediums and most of it. So the bold things are kind of like the main points, right? And I have a slide here for you with an outline if your brain works better that way. Mine certainly does. But before we get there, this one has the ed code, okay? So the things that, really we want to offer you is that these kiddos have the same rights to free speech, the same rights to privacy as everybody else, okay? That means they can wear a pin that says they, them. They can wear a pin in 6th grade or 5th grade or whenever that says pan, right? Bi, that's free speech.
You want them to wear a pin in the 5th grade saying they're pansexual? Did I just hear that correctly? You want in the 5th or 6th grade? I mean, I started dating in the 5th grade, so I guess that's like, by dating in the 5th grade, what I mean is I went to the movies with a boy. That was it. That was it. Okay. You want kids to be wearing a pin around saying they're pansexual in the 5th fucking grade?
Means they can wear a pin that says they, them. They can wear a pin in 6th grade or 5th grade or whenever that says pan, right? Bi, that's free speech, right? Not only that, there are 2 laws that require us to protect these kids, and not just these kids, but each other, staff as well, okay? So schools have a duty to protect students and staff from bias discrimination.
Excuse me, what? Iris, I know you're new here, but I'm going to strongly suggest that you refrain from telling me what I do and do not get until you are able to make it through one of my streams. I have been doing this for longer than you have known what critical race theory is. I have been doing this almost every day for over 3 years. You just showed up. You will not tell me you're finally getting it. Excuse me? You are probably years behind where I am and where my regular audience is in terms of understanding. And you probably don't even know that yet because you've probably been around listening to the Daily Wire and Dan Bongino and all of the other conservatives who think they know what's going on, but really have no goddamn clue. This is condescending as fuck, and it reflects the fact that you haven't been learning from the right people. Because if you think I don't get it, no, sweetheart. No. And if you felt bullied before, if you want to be condescending in my chat to me, I will damn well make you feel bullied. And you will either change the attitude or you will get the fuck out and go back to your conservative influencers. Iris, do you know that I broke the story about the Burlington, Vermont schools grooming kids on the internet 2 fucking years ago? Where the fuck were you? Where were you? You're the one behind us, Iris. And you're not making a good first impression in my chat. Not making a good first impression at all, girl. My God. Oh, it is, huh? It is? Victor is now banned. Goodbye. Are we going to keep throwing temper tantrums in the chat, conservatives? Anyone got anything else to say? You guys are welcome to go run along to all the other people on the internet showing you this content and start whining and complaining in their chats. I don't care if you sit here and watch this. We will sit here until the conservatives work out their fucking feelings and either depart and go somewhere else, because there ain't no one else on the internet showing you this content. Every goddamn time. Rottweiler, thank you for the super chat. Reminder, this has nothing to do with the map stuff. It's about giving agency to kids so they can choose their surrogate family in order to break the family to solve social reproduction theory. To solve the social reproduction problem, shaking my fucking head. That's right. That's right. You see, the thing that Iris says that she thinks that I don't understand. Let's get back to it. Hang on, where is it? Iris, this isn't about sexualizing kids. If you were here longer and you had watched my content longer, you would know this. But you're brand new and you're pretending you know more than me. This is not about sexualizing kids. This is about teaching kids that gender is performative. This is about making a world of non-binary. They don't care about the left doesn't care about sexualizing kids. That's something that conservatives made up. This is how we know what influencers you're listening to. The left is trying to make a world of non-binaries. The left is trying to eliminate gender. The left is trying to eliminate all men and all women. They are trying to create that is what gender equity is. So this isn't even actually correct. Maybe stick around and learn. All right, let me see. Oh, I did see a question from Kate. Hang on. Which I think I might have answered. Why are they targeting the young? Because the younger that you target. See, Iris, this is the correct way to behave in the chat, is to ask questions. The younger, okay, so if you can get something into someone's head before they turn 8 years old, we have these things called mirror neurons that basically anything we see or learn before we're 8 years old gets cemented in our head like eternally and is really hard to undo. So the younger that they get to people, the more likely it is that those kids are going to be indoctrinated for like the rest of their life. And there's really like it is extraordinarily difficult to change programming in people when it's programmed into them very, very young, because it's subconscious programming. Like they may not even be aware of it. They may not be aware of that it's there. They may not even be aware of like what's going on. And so that's why the younger, the better. Because remember, this is not about sexualization. It's really not. That's conservative bullshit. This is about teaching kids that gender is a performance, that gender is fluid, that gender is ever changing, that they can be whatever gender they want, that whatever gender they want to be depends on like what outfit they want to wear that day. That's what this is about. Nope, wrong. Wrong. This is not about it's not about any of this. It's not about any of this. It is about destroying the nuclear family, because the nuclear family Iris, do you know how the nuclear family upholds capitalism? Please educate us. The whole goal of this is to destabilize the gender binary by making everyone believe that gender is fluid. Destabilizing the gender binary is an attack on the nuclear family. They want to attack the nuclear family because they need to abolish capitalism, and they believe the nuclear family upholds capitalism through social reproduction theory. Now let's continue.
And harassment. Okay, well, if you see on my slides SOGIE, that's sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression. And then we're required to intervene if we witness discrimination, harassment, right? I know at school sometimes when we say the word bullying, our brain just shuts off. Like, don't talk to me anymore about bullying. But if we're talking about on that one, what the law says in intimidation, that's kind of like the lowest bar right there, the lowest hanging fruit. Intimidation, what does that look like? You know, if a student walks into a classroom and says, there's only 2 genders, and writes it on the board, as I've been getting calls about when we start school again, right? Kids come back from the summer and they've got a lot to say. That's intimidation. That's harassment. We have a duty to intervene.
What?
But how do we do it? How does our staff?
What? If a student comes into the classroom and writes there are only 2 genders on the board, that's a form of bullying and the school needs to intervene? Let's listen again.
Me anymore about bullying. But if we're talking about on that one, what the law says in intimidation, that's kind of like the lowest bar right there, the lowest hanging fruit. Intimidation, what does that look like? You know, if a student walks into a classroom and says, there's only 2 genders, and writes it on the board, as I've been getting calls about when we start school again, right? Kids come back from the summer and they've got a lot to say. That's intimidation. That's harassment. We have a duty to intervene. But how do we do it? How does our staff know how to do it, right? We have to give them those tools. Most of our staff have not been trained. Even you all here today who found out about this because you're in this work, you're looking for it, like 75% of you, this is your first gender identity training, right? On the thing. Okay, couple other things.
So what we just saw there was an attack on the gender binary. What were we talking about before this when we were educating Iris about what's actually going on? It's not about sexualizing kids. It is about destabilizing the gender binary and getting kids to believe there is no such thing as a gender binary. The gender binary just means men and women. That's all it is. And now what do we see? This is a direct attack on the gender binary being taught to educators in California. Yeah, exactly. Writing 2 + 2 = 4 on the board is evil capitalist oppression. We'll see that next, maybe.
Just to point out the gender ID recognition for state records. Y'all know that non-binary is a legal gender in the state of California, male, female, non-binary. So that exists in SIS and CalPADS as well. Okay. And then also, if a student comes in and says, hey, my identifying information is incorrect, and I want to correct it. That's not a legal name change, right? But we can make those corrections in our SIS systems, in Aries and Synergy, et cetera. With their gender, we don't need any legal documentation to make that correction on their permanent record. Okay, makes sense?
Okay.
Yep. With their gender identity.
I want to go back and get a clip of that. Do people mind if I go back just a little bit? I want to go back and get a clip of that. I apologize. I should have done this before, but I was like, I'm going to clip it later. I was like, no, that's important enough that I want to clip it right now. So I apologize. Give me 2 seconds. We're going to get a clip of that crazy part.
Discrimination, harassment, right? I know at school sometimes when we say the word bullying, we kind of just, our brain just shuts off. Like, don't talk to me anymore about bullying. But if we're talking about on that one, what the law says in intimidation, that's kind of like the lowest bar right there, the lowest hanging fruit. Intimidation, what does that look like? You know, if a student walks into a classroom and says, there's only 2 genders, and writes it on the board, as I've been getting calls about when we start school again, right? Kids come back from the summer and they've got a lot to say. That's intimidation. That's harassment. We have a duty to intervene. But how do we do it? How does our staff know how to do it, right? We have to give them those tools. Most of our staff have not been trained. Even you all here today who found out about this because you're in this work, you're looking for it, like 75% of you, this is your first gender identity training, right? On the thing. A couple other things,
Just a clip. Hang on. I did see a question come up in the chat, so I'll take that question. Hang on one sec. There we go. Appreciate you guys giving me that flexibility. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Let me go up and find that question. Carlin, have you seen James Lindsay's video? No. Where he argues that wokeism qualifies as a religion? No, it doesn't. Technically, and could potentially be banned from being taught in public schools. James Lindsay is wrong. There's no way in this universe that they're ever going to qualify wokeism as a religion. Number one, because there's not one consistent definition of what wokeism is. Number two, there's not one singular leader in the land of wokeism. It's a collectivist ideology, and so there are multiple leaders. Those leaders can be replaced and swapped out at any point. So it's not even something that would qualify under that standard. But most importantly, number three, Christian conservatives would never, ever, 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 ever allow it. The biggest opposition you would get to declaring wokeism, which I probably define differently than James Lindsay does. I define woke as authoritarian, which I don't think he does, but that's my definition of it. So you already see the problem there. The most opposition that the idea to making wokeism a religion that you would ever get would not come from the left, it would come from the right. Because Christian conservatives want to teach religion in schools. Christian conservatives are desperate to get the Bible back in schools. They're desperate to do it. They try to do it all the time. They say, as long as we're taking all these books out of the library, we might as well replace it with the Bible. I swear to God, there are groups doing this. There are Moms for Liberty groups doing this. So if you make the argument that we can't teach wokeism in schools, then that also means you can't teach the Bible in schools. And that is not something that Christian conservatives will ever allow to happen. So not only is James Lindsay wrong that it qualifies as a religion, because it doesn't. It doesn't have one leader. It doesn't have one God. It's a collectivist ideology. James Lindsay understands that. I don't know why he continues to lie to his audience. It'll never be banned from public schools on this basis because conservative Christians would not allow it. Wouldn't they see it as just another false religion, like how they see other sects of Christianity? I mean, probably. I don't know. Probably.
To point out the gender ID recognition for state records. Y'all know that non-binary is a legal gender in the state of California, male, female, non-binary. So that exists in SIS and CalPADS as well. Okay. And then also, if a student comes in and says, hey, my identifying information is incorrect and I want to correct it, that's not a legal name change.
Thank you, Rottweiler. Thank you. Christians would never play along. They would be held to the same standard, and we know Christian authoritarians don't like the Establishment Clause. That's exactly right. I understand the inclination to get woke classified as a religion. I understand that, but it's just not going to work, guys. It really isn't going to work for no other reason than no one can even come up with a definition of what woke is, because it's not just a leftist ideology. Carlin, can you explain the significance of work here, as in do the work? when I taught ACLS, I termed the class professionals because that's what we are. Her last sentence spurred this question. I mean, when they say do the work, they mean advancing the cause of the revolution. That's what the work is. That's why they always hold up the fist. I mean, not in this, but like when you see them like at protests, do the work, do the work. That's why they have the fist for everything. When they're saying do the work, it is perpetuate the revolution. To do the work of the struggle. The struggle is the perpetual revolution. Does that make sense?
Change, right? But we can make those corrections in our SIS systems, in Aries and Synergy, et cetera. With their gender, we don't need any legal documentation to make that correction on their permanent record. Okay, makes sense?
That seems valid.
Yep. With their gender identity, we don't need legal documentation to make that correction on their CalPEDS record. Okay.
But I feel like there's a but.
No, but if you update something in Aries or in Synergy, people who have access to the parent portal will see it. Yeah. So when you're doing an identity support plan with a student, that's something to go over. And that's why there's a thorough section about that. Okay.
So with the School Success and Opportunity Act, that was part of legislation that built on previous legislation that continued to build and define more rights and support for students over the decades. And so about 10 years ago, this law was passed. And unfortunately, in some places, it got the nickname of the bathroom bill. We really want to highlight that that's not what this was about. The bathrooms is just one small issue that's indicated in this legislation, but it's really about what it's called, school success and opportunity. Because when we look at educational outcomes, academics, college rates, those numbers plummet when we look at LGBT populations and especially our transgender students. So again, we want to focus on this is about school success. You see here also the ed code. And then some of the other things that are included in this legislation include the right to request affirmed names and pronouns, having access to extracurricular activities. That's another thing that we want to increase access to for our students, especially when we're looking at promoting equity. And it also talks about access to facilities, which we'll also talk about when we get to that next week.
And those of you, this link down here, I think I added that last time in Tinker. So if they sent it out the PDF, it might not be on there, but it's an updated legal guidance from CSBA, which is really good and includes current case law. That came out in May 2022, right? So definitely look for that.
We're looking at different strategies at the to support your work at your individual departments as well as district-wide. There are lots of things that are already included in your required policies, right? You have your Title IX, you have your anti-discrimination, anti-bullying, suicide prevention. All those are already required. And so the idea here, the strategy is to integrate additional pieces to those policies, almost like an addendum, to include our gender diverse students, or SOGI, the sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression. So that's one piece. The other way of looking at it is looking at this as a foundation for best practices. So if you integrate those practices into what's required, that's using the existing laws. And then when you want to take it to the next step, you can actually have more inclusive policies that provide more details about equity and enrollment issues and other forms of protection. And that can be a board policy in itself. And so that board policy is 5145.3. So several districts in Orange County have that policy. And as Lindsay mentioned on the last slide, CSBA has templates. And so when you create that policy on its own, it again provides more of a foundational piece for the district to stand on when they want to ensure that, again, that we're promoting equity, that we're allowing students to have full access to all the services that they need to build and thrive and reach their goals.
And if you want to try and bring this policy forward in your district, reach out to us and we'll send you a copy.
So these are just a list of other strategies. I'm sure many of them are familiar to you.
GSAs.
We use them in many other areas. For example,
GSA's QSA is that Queer Student Alliance, I'm betting. This is where they're indoctrinating kids into gender ideology, is in GSAs. I've never heard QSAs. Rainbow clubs is another term for them. Inclusive classrooms, what does that mean? Neutral dress codes, that means that they can wear the clothing of the opposite sex. Restorative practices is a social justice thing that's designed to teach kids about abolishing the carceral system, abolishing prisons, stuff like that. LGBTQ plus focused outreach, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Full identity support planning. That's a whole lot of socialism on that slide.
Behavior issues or other interventions. But some of the strategies that we want to emphasize include the GSAs.
Seriously? Oh yeah, the GSA. Excuse me. Yeah, of course they want to emphasize the GSAs. I started yawning in the middle of that sentence. I came across a discussion on how many crew. Can you send that to me, two ladies? Thank you. I would like to see that discussion. That'd be pretty great. You should have sent it to me. Always send me stuff like that, two ladies. Come on.
We have lots of GSA supporters in the room today. One of the things I want to highlight about GSAs is that research shows that GSAs actually increase educational outcomes and safety for all students, not just LGBT students. It actually impacts their student body. So if someone questions, well, this is only helping a few students, that's not true. It's actually impacting the entire environment because it promotes safety, inclusiveness, connectedness, and it brings students together. And I know when we work on several GSA projects, the number of students that showed up and the outreach numbers is amazing. We're so excited to see that because that really reinforced exactly what we had read in the research. So that is definitely one of our favorite strategies. And also, for example, many of you, I'm sure, involved with MTSS or student consultation teams, student success teams. We have to be aware, are there issues, when it comes to gender, identity, or even expression, are those included in that process? If we're just looking at the student without including all parts of the student, then we're disregarding some very important things, and we're not going to be successful, sensitive, or really effective in reaching them and supporting them. So those are just a few of the things. The rest are on the list, and we'll be happy to answer any questions on that later. So again, language is very important. I know I'm really, what they say?
We learned this in the other Orange County training as well. Should I just get the clip ready? Should I just what they're about to teach, if you haven't seen this before, they're about to teach educators to stop using gendered language like boys and girls. Let me get the clip ready. Might as well just do it now. I know I'm going to do it eventually.
And we'll be happy to answer any questions on that later. So again, language is very important. I know I'm really
hang on. Sorry, I got to start that again because I need to get the closed captions off the screen. Sorry, guys.
And we'll be happy to answer any questions on that later. So again, language is very important. I know I'm really what they say, a word geek, because I love to analyze language and see how it evolves, because we get better, right? When we learn how to be more respectful and more inclusive in our language. So we're all familiar with boys and girls, especially when we think about elementary schools, right? Separating by boys and girls. These books are for girls, these books are for boys. Only talking about moms and dads, assuming identity and structure. And then we look at, our upper grades where you have your homecoming ceremonies, right?
I am so dumb. I just screwed up the clip again. I apologize. Last time, third time's the charm. I apologize. No, James O'Keefe is a massive narcissist who basically got a lot of other people to do work for him that he took credit for. He has never done the undercover journalism in his entire experience. I wrote about this on the Substack, an extensive investigation into what actually happened at Project Veritas. James O'Keefe is not a good person. I want nothing to do with James O'Keefe. I know a lot of people who work for Project Veritas. No. James O'Keefe destroyed that entire company. He lied about what happened. I have no respect for that asshole at all. I don't care what he's doing. I don't trust any of his journalism because I know about his tactics. No. I know you mean well, Terry, but no, thank you. Okay, I promise this time I am not going to screw up the clip. We're doing it right this time. Hang on. I clip. I apologize to everyone. Thank you for bearing with me. I normally don't screw them up this much, I promise.
So again, language is very important. I know I'm really, what they say, word geek, because I love to analyze language and see how it evolves, because we get better, right? When we learn how to be more respectful and more inclusive in our language. So we're all familiar with boys and girls, especially when we think about elementary schools, right? Separating by boys and girls. These books are for girls, these books are for boys. Only talking about moms and dads, assuming identity and structure. And then we look at, our upper grades where you have your homecoming ceremonies, you have your key points, right? That's all language that we're comfortable with, because it's been something that's been around for a while. But at the same time, we've been evolving, right? We've been getting better and better about having more inclusive language. And so on that journey, I want to encourage you to also think about other terms. For example, friends, scholars, readers. Why do we have to say boys and girls? I know with PBIS, often we go to scholars, or we use the school mascot, right? That's so much better than putting that stress on children as to, getting in line with boys and girls. There are other techniques. You can line up alphabetically by birthday, favorite color, so many things. In encouraging that all the toys in the preschool, or all the books, all the, support materials are for all students, right? Not saying, well, the girls can go over there and work on arts and crafts, and the boys can go over here and work with the little trucks. We want to take that away and help them feel that it's okay to interested in whatever is, their passion, so to speak. Always looking for those correct pronouns, be respectful and kind. And I know a local high school, in the district where my kids attend, they actually changed it from meaning king and queen to royal court. So everyone was a member of the royal court. And it also created more equity, because there were like four or five people who were, instead of just one being, the top king, the top queen. So these are simple things that we can include to be more respectful, to be more inclusive, and start to create that cultural shift. So this doesn't become just the best practice, but our everyday practice.
Oh God, there was so much in there. So did you notice at the end, she said that this was about eliminating gendered language was about creating equity to make a cultural shift. He explicitly said a cultural shift. They're trying to get rid of kings and queens, like prom king and queen. And actually, Jason, this isn't correct. You're not right here. It does not screw up Drag Queen Story Hour at all, because the explicit goal of Drag Queen Story Hour is to teach kids that gender is a performance. So it doesn't actually screw it up at all. It actually reinforces it. Also, what they said when they said they wanted to get rid of like prom king and prom queen, or homecoming king, homecoming queen, what I didn't have that in my school, so like whatever. Like when they said that, they said it also creates more equity on the royal court, because everyone's just a member of the royal court. There's no one at the top of the royal court. That's a socialist thing. Socialists hate hierarchy. They don't like that there was a king and a queen, and then like prince and princesses, or like whatever the royal court was. I don't even know how that stuff works. Like, they don't like that there are different levels of people, so they want to create something where everyone is on the same level. Did you guys catch that? They want to gender neutralize everything. Now, this might not seem like a big deal, but remember, the goal of the left is not to sexualize children. It's to abolish the gender binary. That's what that's about. And so when they're coming through, like they're saying it like, we just want to make sure everyone has a toy. We just want to make sure that the boys know they can do arts and crafts and the girls know they can play with trucks, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with those things, right? I don't care if girls play with trucks and boys play with arts and crafts. But the goal of doing this is to gender neutralize everything because they are trying to change the language in order to elicit a cultural shift. I want to just listen to the last part of this one more time because I want you to hear the part where she says this. These are simple things that we can do to influence a cultural shift.
So just, these are simple things that we can include to be more respectful, to be more inclusive, and start to create that cultural shift.
Cultural shift, not like whatever, captioning they have. These are things we can do to start to create a cultural shift. This ain't just about the schools, guys. It's not just about the schools. It's about everything. They're just starting with the schools because that is the institution they have on lockdown.
So this doesn't become just the best practice, but our everyday practice.
Exactly.
So with identity support planning, this is where we're going to jump into the heart of what does this planning look like? This work started because we realized we needed tools and practices to support students in identifying what their needs were. We also recognized the skyrocketing suicide rates, and especially for this population. And so we know that where IDSPs are effectively introduced and practiced, the suicide rates are substantially lower. And we've looked at data nationally as well as locally. And that is one of the reasons that we are such proponents of this tool, because it is about the student, for the student. And as practitioners, I know that's where we're at. So there are lots of testimonies, evidence, and outcomes, again, as I mentioned. So those who are involved with IDSPs, we have higher college admissions, and that's because we have a significant increase in instructional time, an increase in academic access, because they're now putting more energy into that instead of their safety. Think about what it's like to have to always worry about your safety. How much energy do you have left to focus on math or algebra or calculus or your college admission? So unless you have allies who are there to support you and an environment where you feel safe, you can't focus on that. And so once we get to that point through an IDSP process and cultural shifts, this is the result. So we have an increase in extracurricular activities, more stability, social emotionally, reduced suicide risk. And also a decrease in victimization from peers. Because again, the peers start changing their behaviors and realize we're all this together.
Okay, so one of the things that we like to talk about when we talk about identity support planning, one of the things that we say all the time is it's not about the form. It's about the relationship, right? When we're doing different kinds of planning, accommodations planning, 504 planning, some of that kind of stuff, we have a form, we have a very prescriptive thing we have to fill out. We have, we have to meet these particular item checklists. And then also we have to meet with the student again in this much time and then in this much time. This one is actually much more free flowing. It kind of depends on the particular student and what their needs are, right? So now that I've just told you it's not about the form, I want you to take out the form and take a look at the form. Now, what happened is Heidi and I worked on identity support plans specifically for schools almost 10 years ago. Yeah. And there were items available. We pulled from a bunch of items, but they didn't really feel like they were very tailored towards schools and students needed in schools. So we kind of started working over the years to try and perfect this in practice and in process. And the one that is now called secondary was just what we were using as a universal identity support plan. And then in the last couple of years, we had the opportunity to develop this elementary plan, which is something that we've wanted to do for a long time, because in the field, what we have found is that in elementary, typically what happens is that these kids will come to us. When I say these kids, I mean transgender or gender diverse kids. When I say gender diverse, do y'all want me to explain that a little bit?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so gender diverse is a pretty broad term. And it might mean, kids who the way that they express is maybe not stereotypical for their gender or their sex assigned at birth, right? So if you have a baby, the baby is born and the doctor says it's a boy, for example, and that boy comes to TK and says, I'm a boy and is wearing a princess dress, this is a diverse expression. It doesn't necessarily mean that this child is going to have a transgender identity or a non-cisgender identity. Diverse expression. When kids are in preschool, gender expression is like, we say it's gender utopia, because you just do what you like. You're like, well, I like shiny, and I like sparkles, and I like sequins, and I like pink. And a lot of times, like for our boys, we had made that inaccessible, right? And now you can go into like a big box store and find like a sequins shark that you can make go up, or dinosaur, right? So we're allowing for that in some ways, but it's still very gendered, right? The unicorns are on one side.
Doesn't this? Well, she's a she they sin. Don't misgender people. She's a she they. She does look a little like Emmy O'Brien, though. You're right about that. I mean, yeah, exactly. You could be caramel sparkle like they taught in the training in Washington, D.C. I mean, there's something to be said about the fact that, like, listen, like, I don't care what toys kids play with. If a boy wants to play with a sparkle shark or like a Barbie doll, like, I don't really care. I think like it doesn't make a difference. But there is something to be said about the fact that they're flooding the market with like non-binary toys, like explicitly. That's weird.
Sharks and dinosaurs are over here. And we all know how that's supposed to associate, right? So when kids cross those boundaries, that's a diverse expression. Does that make sense? When you're thinking more like about, high school age kids, and you see kids who are identifying in different ways, maybe they identify as non-binary, or maybe they just come to school in nail polish, exactly. Earrings, long earrings. I've seen that a lot recently. So that would be kind of a diverse expression. Okay, but not all of those kids need some sort of intervention or support in this way. So when we're talking about elementary school, kids who are coming in with a transgender identity, typically we find out about them at two specific periods of time. One is when they're just starting school, maybe it's TK or kinder, and that's when they come to enroll. Kinder. And their parent or guardian will call the administrator and be like, I'm enrolling my child, and we need to have a conversation, right? And typically the parent's like, what do I do? How are you going to protect my kid, right? And so that's when we go through this process, and we bring the parent in, and we say, hey, we have this whole process at school where we can help support your family and your child, right? And I've had these conversations with parents, and the parent just starts crying. And I'll say, what are you worried about? Why are you crying? And parents have said to me, I just want my kid to be safe. I mean, most of us in here are parents. Yeah, so do we, right? I get that. And as school folks, we're like, absolutely. That's what we're here to do. Let's figure it out. Let's make a plan. So this gives you that plan, right? Another time that we see, I think, elementary school age kids come in for planning processes is more like as they get towards puberty. So depending on how high your elementary schools go, 5th grade, 6th grade, some of these kids will start coming out of school. How many of you are elementary? So you've seen some of this? Is this familiar? Yes. Yeah. Okay. So that's why you have both of those documents. And the way the elementary one is written, it really gives you two options. Like you can see even on that first page, if you're just doing it with the child, right? Or if you're doing it with the family. Okay. But mostly when we go through this process, things to think about is we're only addressing areas that the student wants to address. If the student wants to change their name on a roster, then we figure out with the student, make a plan how to do that. Done. If the student wants, to go more into it, they want to have their parents come in and have a conversation. Maybe the student wants to play a sport within their identified gender. Then we're talking about all that stuff. Make sense? So it's very student-led, student-driven. And because of that, it's really about developing that relationship with that student and or that family. So instead of like, okay, I'm going to check in with you in 3 months or 6 months, I'm going to check in with that student again in about 2 weeks. If they're an elementary school kid, it's probably going to be in about 2 days, right? The younger the kid, probably more frequently you're going to check in until you really kind of know that they're stable. And also, they know that they have access and that they have a partner in this process. Does that make sense? And because their needs are going to change over time, right? We might get a kid coming in having these conversations with us very early on, or maybe in middle school, and we're going to have that kid for another 6 years, right? So their needs are going to change over time. And as they move from middle school to high school, or if they matriculate from one to another, you're going to talk to them about having kind of a warm handoff, those kinds of things to make sure there's a continuum of care.
Continuum of care. That's a socialist thing.
All right, so this is kind of how we've broken down the process into 3 main things. The first thing you're going to do is connect. So I know we have a couple teachers in the room, but we also have some counselors and school psychs and administrators, right? So say you're a teacher and a student comes out to you in an essay. So your first thing might be to pull that student aside or say, hey, if you want to talk, you know, or you could write something on the essay. Hey, thanks for trusting me with this information. Do you mind coming to see me after class or whatever, right? And then that teacher has a referral pathway. I think it's important for teachers to know that this is not something that they have.
Reagan and I had the same thought at the same moment, and I was like trying to collect my thoughts about what I thought about this. Does anyone else find it just a little creepy? Sandy also finds it creepy and inappropriate for a teacher to follow up with a student if they come out in an essay. Like, it's creepy, right? It's creepy. And it's one of those things, they're like, they always talk about like, well, you wouldn't treat the gay kids different than like the straight kids. Well, are the teachers following up with all the straight kids to make sure they're okay with their newly discovered sexuality? Then why are they following up with the gay kids or the trans kids or like whatever? It's creepy. It's creepy. Yeah, and privately too. They're having private conversations separate from the family that they have no intention about telling the family about with kids about their sexuality. This is the very definition of teachers practicing psychology without a license. You yelled no when you heard, yeah, I was like, in my head, I'm like, no. Yeah, come talk to me alone after class one. We actually watched last year, and you can find this on my Substack. We watched a training given by the Michigan Department of Education last year, in which their teacher of the year, who is non-binary and a BLM activist and a trans activist, of course, a teacher in one of their schools basically had like a Google Doc that the kids could go into and give their name and phone number in the Google Doc, and the teacher would call them privately to talk about their gender and sexuality. That was training hosted by the state of Michigan, targeted at all teachers in Michigan. It's on my Substack. You guys can find it over there. Conservative media never taught you about that, did they? Conservative media never taught you that the Michigan Department of Education was literally training teachers how to groom students all over the flipping state. Why would they? It's not like I discovered this in an election year. Oh, wait, I did. But no, can't tell that story. No. This is creepy. I want to go back and start that again. I just want us to like really sit with this one for like a moment.
This is kind of how we've broken down the process into 3 main things. The first thing you're going to do is connect. So I know we have a couple teachers in the room, but we also have some counselors and school psychs and administrators, right? So say you're a teacher and a student comes out to you in an essay. So your first thing might be to pull that student aside or say, hey, if you want to talk, you know, or you could write something on the essay. Hey, thanks for trusting me with this information. Do you mind coming to see me after class or whatever, right? And then that teacher has a referral pathway. I think it's important for teachers to know that this is not something that they have to do and figure out and coordinate and all that stuff.
A referral
They're busy,
pathway,
right?
pathway.
But they
A
can introduce this to the
pathway.
student. Did you know we have a whole process at our district to help support you? Do you mind if I reach out to your school counselor or whoever it is at your site? Do you mind if I reach out to the school social worker?
So now the teacher, because they read an essay, has not only had a private meeting with the student about their gender and sexuality, they're also reaching out to the school psychologist and the school social worker also to talk to their student about their gender and sexuality. And they are never going to tell the parents this is happening. This is a parent-free zone, because remember, laws in California prevent school districts from disclosing this information to parents because children have privacy rights too. So now we have 3 different adults reaching out to a kid who wrote an essay about their gender and sexuality, having private meetings with a student in which their caretaker and guardian is not present and will not be informed.
LGBTQ coordinator liaison. And they can come and talk to you about it. By the way, this whole thing is confidential. So it's totally up to you.
Yep, confidential, totally up to you. We may have missed this. I want to it's not even just 3 people, it's 4, because apparently the school also has an LGBT coordinator. Let's listen to that little last part again.
Do you mind if I reach out to your school counselor or whoever it is at your site? Do you mind if I reach out to the school social worker, to our LGBTQ coordinator liaison? And they can come and talk to you about it. By the way, this whole thing is confidential, right? And then you get that referral or you get that phone call or you get that, hey, check in with this kiddo. And that's where you're going to go and you're going to connect with them.
Non-binary.
Right? And so you'll meet them, kind of figure out what's going on. What do they need? What are they looking for? What kind of support do they need in school? Explain the identity support planning process. Let them know, it's really up to them who comes to this meeting. You want to have a meeting, kind of talk to them about it, talk them through certain things. Are their parents aware? Who do they live with? Are the people that you live with, are your grown-ups aware? Why or why not?
They're having an entire group conversation with this student to create an identity support plan. This is creepy. Yeah, what they said earlier is that in the state of California, schools can't disclose this information to parents because it's a violation of student privacy rights. I mentioned this earlier, but I'll say it again. The Attorney General of California is right now suing a school district in California because the school district was like, F you guys, we're telling the parents what's going on with their kids. And the Attorney General of California is literally suing a school district because that school district is refusing to follow the law telling them that they can't tell parents what's going on with kids. Crazy. Iris, I'm glad you stuck around. Good for you. I'm glad you stuck around. We break you down so we can build you back up, Iris. This is like boot camp. This is socialism boot camp.
What does that look like? Would you like them? Is there someone you would like to attend with you? Right? So I worked kind of in a liaison role. I would always say, can I invite a counselor? Counselor is important, right? So those are kind of the things you're going to walk through in that first initial. And then after that, you schedule the meeting. If the parents are coming, it takes a little bit longer to coordinate, but you get that meeting on the schedule as soon as you can. And then you go around and you kind of, talk through the basics. Obviously,
I yell when I care that you're learning, Iris, so I'm glad you stuck around. Thank you.
You're going to use the student's affirmed identity throughout these meetings, right? Like you will use their affirmed name.
You will use their affirmed identity.
And their affirmed pronouns.
Yep.
Okay. If there are people in the meeting that are not doing that, then I would kindly correct them. Okay. And so then you'll go through the parts of the form that the student is interested in talking about. And then the implementation part. What did you decide? What do you need to do? What is it going to take to do that? Okay. And then there you're in all kinds of different roles. You're advocating, you're educating, you're providing support, possibly to administrators, possibly to PE coach, activity supervisor, etc.
Holy shit.
become a tour
Holy
guide.
shit. Look at this. Look at this. They're like, now the entire school knows. The administrators know. The PE coach knows. Everyone knows about the identity support plan except for the parents. We literally now have dozens of adults in the school district that know that the child is socially transitioning an identity, and the parents still haven't been informed.
Tour guide. Yeah.
You will strategy tools is to give students, a tour, a walk with them to, let's say, to the locker rooms and figure out what is the best area or where do they feel the most comfortable changing. Also, if you look at health statistics, our students are suffering from UTIs and other health issues. They're not eating because they don't want to use the restroom because, again, they're not feeling safe. So what is the nearest restroom in which class, and how can we set it up where maybe you leave 5 minutes early so you get a head start and you feel safer, or whatever, however they determine works best for them. Again, they're driving this, but you know what it is, seeing is believing, right? So when you go on these tours with them and they start thinking about it, it really helps them kind of bring this to light and make it feel real. And that reinforces the integrity of the plan. And the other thing, again, when we said, it's all about the form, we have lots of questions on this form, and that's just a guide, because when you're on the spot, let's say you're doing this a month from now or 6 months from now, you're not going to remember everything we talked about today. But with that form in front of you, hopefully it just, ignites that information for you, helps you remember, it guides you. And it's okay to leave some of it blank. And I know there are a lot of other forms we use in education that have legal implications. This is not one of them. So this is not about being completed. It's just about a tool that is a guide to the process.
I'm a school social worker by training. And so, typically when we think about this stuff, sometimes we think about it as assessing, because that's like language that we use as a social worker. But we actually changed it to be a little bit more clear, because in the school setting, we are not assessing, to just be clear, we're not assessing the student's identity. That's not our role. Our role is to affirm and support, right? They're coming to us with this information and we're saying, thank you so much for trusting me with this information. How can I support you? Like, that's basically where we're coming from. Does that make sense? So the focus is really on student safety, the school environment, the peers, the circle of support. These are the things we're going to be focused on. The facilities, like Heidi mentioned. So a lot of times these kids will avoid the bathrooms and the UTIs or kidney infections. Bathrooms are a major source of stress for a lot of these kiddos. And so trying to find ways to reduce barriers, like the locker room tour, this is something that I started.
Don't do this. We don't play the conservative gender identity games. It's a woman. You can see it's a woman. Just because she has a haircut you don't like and glasses that you don't like and her boobs aren't showing doesn't mean she's not a woman. Don't play this conservative bullshit got you game with me. We're doing stuff that's way more important here.
With all secondary kids, I'll even walk them through their schedule. Like at the beginning of the year, if they're at a different school, let's walk through your schedule, find out where the bathrooms are. Let's go in. Sorry, this is the boys' bathroom. I can't go. You go ahead with this counselor or whatever. Let me know if I can come in. Right? There's things like this that you're doing that are showing respect for the student, and then also you're able to see, okay, they're making an informed decision now because they know what they're choosing, right? Same with locker rooms. Where do they feel most safe? What accommodations can we make? A lot of times our kids are assigned to a locker in a locker room for PE based on their period of PE and their student ID number or last name, something like that, right? That's how they're assigned. But we can make accommodations, right? If we need to. Some students are going to feel a lot more comfortable in front of the big window where the coaches and teachers sit behind in their office. Some students want to be kind of in front of the window just to make sure that that makes them feel more safe. Some students want to be like way away. Yeah, way far away from that window, right? And some students want to be where their friends are. That's where they feel safe. And just a note here about students who may feel uncomfortable changing in an area where there is a transgender student, because that comes up too.
Oh, here we go.
And typically, in my experience, what I see is parents contacting the school, parents being uncomfortable. Maybe the student comes home and says, hey, there's a trans kid in my locker room. I've had this come up before where actually the student was not trans. And it just was something that the kid thought, and then it created this whole thing. And as an administrator, you know, you're kind of like, well, I can't tell you who's in the locker room. And also, you should know that by law, yes, this is possible and has been legal.
So if there is a trans girl that has a giant penis that is changing in the girls' locker room, but is a trans girl, so the penis is okay in the girls' locker room. And remember, we already know from earlier in the presentation that all a person needs to do to identify as female in California is to tell the school that they're female. So that's pretty easy. And then they get access to the locker room. I mean, I suppose it doesn't have to be a giant penis. It could be a penis of any size, but I would assume that, like, especially when we're talking about like maybe younger girls, maybe like middle school, because remember this presentation is targeted for elementary and middle school. I would venture a guess that like any penis would be intimidating for like girls that probably haven't had sex yet, maybe. I mean, I don't know, like I know some people start having sex in middle school, but not everyone, you know. And even then it would still probably be weird, because they're in middle school. So boy goes to school, identifies as girl, gets access to girls' locker room, starts changing in girls' locker room, shows penis of any size to middle school girls. Girls go home, complain to parents. Parents call school, says, WTF, why is my 12-year-old daughter seeing a penis in her locker room? And the answer that the school gives them is, suck it up, buttercup. She just has to deal. Do I have that basically right? Am I right? Now you're just bragging, Diego. Okay. Now you're just bragging. Let's just listen to that again.
Contacting the school, parents being uncomfortable. Maybe the student comes home and says, hey, there's a trans kid in my locker room. I've had this come up before where actually the student was not trans. And it just was something that the kid thought, and then it created this whole thing. And as an administrator, you know, you're kind of like, well, I can't tell you who's in the locker room. And also, you should know that by law, yes, this is possible and has been legally mandated for what, over 10 years now, or 10 years now. And I'm sure what's happening before that too, we just didn't know, right? So, but we can, any student for any reason can contact the school or the district or their parent and say, hey, my student needs an increased level of safety in the bathroom. And that is something that we can address for that student, right? So we don't have to say, oh, we have to pull this kid that we just did a support plan with out of the bathroom. We say, okay, let's make a restroom plan for your student. Let me show you where the restrooms are. Let me show you where, you know, all gender restrooms are, those kinds of things. So that's how you can work around those kinds of issues. Any questions?
So hang on. So the solution to the problem is that the trans 12-year-old with the penis is still going to stay in the girls' locker room, But the girl who complained because she doesn't want to see the penis in the locker room is now going to be removed from the locker room and brought somewhere else. That's the solution.
What to do with the plan? So the plan is private. So I wouldn't do it digitally. I've never done these digitally. I've never emailed them to people. I just think that's like a number one way to make something not confidential is by putting it on the internet. I keep a file of these, and in districts where I have been responsible for doing them, there was a locked file in the district as well. Every district kind of will come up there with their own procedure. Sometimes it's just like a liaison or a coordinator that does all of them. Sometimes it's counselors at every site are trained to do them, right? How many of you have done one of these before? How many of you have done a lot of these? Yeah.
Look at all the people who've done a lot.
The people who get a copy, the student if they want one, right? Sometimes they don't want one because it's like a hot potato.
And the parents still haven't been fucking notified. We're still in this place where literally everyone in the school knows that the child is newly minted as trans or non-binary. The parents literally, there's a whole fucking plan developed that is enforceable by law, and the parents legally have not been notified.
They do. The parent or caregiver, if they're there, and a lot of times I do have parents come. There's a lot of parents who are involved. Just for the record, there's a lot of supportive parents, right? And a lot of times I have kids that I have learned about or who referred to me because they came into the school site with their parent to register and they're like, that's not good enough. And then that school calls the district and the district's like, oh, well, we can do better. You know, we have all these resources. We have more than that. The site just wasn't totally aware. So a lot of times parents are actually advocating for their kids on behalf of their student, right? Whoever your person is who's facilitating it, the safe person on campus, should keep a copy.
Hang on. I'm not wearing my hoodie right now, Ninja Artist. Sometimes I'm gonna wear a different sweater, okay? I'm currently wearing my sweater that is 3 sizes too big for me, that has my Real Marxism design on the front that I cut off the collar of, that's really comfy and cozy, and I didn't feel like changing into a t-shirt and a hoodie, all right? It was just one of those days. Don't judge. Question, Dr. K, do you feel that the people sitting in on this class know they're being exposed, coached in socialism and socialist language? No. I think the people sitting in on this class are useful, idiot, progressive Californians who think that they need to do this stuff to do the right thing because they live in California and were probably raised in California, and this is all they've ever known because it's California.
And then the process is kind of up to your school. It doesn't go in the CUME. It doesn't go in Aries or Synergy or your SIS system. I wouldn't even say that you did one, right? Because each plan will be different on who can know. And that will change over time. Okay, and just some language, some tips on some language. How many of you have all the trauma-informed training? Most of us. This is a trauma-informed process. It's very much student-led. It's very much informed consent-based. It's very much about listening, right, to what's needed and providing support where necessary. Also, we can educate or,
So now they're basically admitting that the school is being charged with providing trauma therapy to the students without telling their parents.
Make students aware of what opportunities there are for them. Like, they might not realize that they do have the right to play a sport if they want to. They may not realize that, there's different things that are available to them. I used to always ask a question at the end of doing an identity support plan with a student. I would always say, part of the questions in there, one of them is there anything we haven't talked about that you're interested in bringing up? But I always say, is there anything that you never thought you could do that you want to do? And I had a freshman one time answer me and say, I want to swim. I'm a swimmer. I want to be on the swim team. We were like, okay, and that kid was on the swim team, super successfully, and then transferred to a more rigorous higher program, is now in a 4-year college, ran the newspaper at high school, just basically took full advantage of school, where before they were barely even showing up. So making these opportunities available is how we can create equity for these kids, right? So some of the things that we might say, thank you so much for trusting me with this information. I think that's a great place to start. Just honoring the information that's been shared, right? Because again, our kids didn't change. They didn't change who they are. They're just letting us in. Does that make sense? We want to make sure that you feel safe and supported at school. That's where we're coming from. That's our stance. You're in charge of this process. This is yours. I used to tell kids, you're my boss in this. I work for you. What do you want to do? Right? I recognize that you are the expert in your own safety. So just a note on that real fast, just a little explanation to give you some context around that. If you are a queer person or a queer kid, you become an expert in evaluating risk because you're doing it all the time. You're doing it all the time. Is it safe to sit here? Is it safe to walk here? Is it safe to go to that bathroom? Is it safe to write this essay? Is it safe to, tell my friend that I have a crush on them or whatever? They're constantly evaluating risk. So they know better than I do which bathroom is safe and why. They know, right? So we have to acknowledge that they're going to have a lot to say about that, and that information is important for us to hear. Also, making sure that they know that the information is confidential. By law, I'm only allowed to share this with the folks that you give me permission to share it with. So let's talk about who needs to know and why, right? And talk through that. Make sure that they're aware. I have a note here, and I just want to say this I think this goes without saying, but we never ask about bodies. You never ask about a kid's body. There's a lot of different ways to be a person. Transgender people, there's not like one way. There's not a pathway with an ending, and once you get to that finish line, then you are officially transgender. It doesn't work that way, right? So I think a lot of people have a misconception that surgery is involved. And I would say that's very uncommon, actually, especially for children. That's does not really occur. It's not a thing, right? So it's not like, where are you in the process? It's like the person who comes in front of you and says, I am this person, that's who they are in that moment. Does that make sense? Okay. Any questions?
I was curious, in this time that you are having this discussion, reassuring students, do you ever discuss, or is it important to also discuss with the student how to address when school staff or people they may consider superiors are not engaging with them in or acknowledging, say for example, this happened to my child personally, right? Dressed in the way she felt appropriate, walked to the girls' restroom, the teacher stopped her and says, no, you can't go to that restroom, you need to go to that restroom. And as empowered as the student may feel about a lot of these things, I think we all get caught off guard sometimes, right? So is that part of how do you address that in your training?
Well, essentially, that is what the IDSP is, about addressing all those things. We can't always predict what might happen. Like, let's say we had a great IDSP planning last week and then this situation occurred.
Yeah.
But we want that student to go to their ally, to the person they feel comfortable with and say, hey, by the way, this happened. And so hopefully then a new plan can be devised to talk to that teacher and help them understand. They need to be open and inclusive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And to that point, sometimes, we'll do a training for an entire school staff, but the activity supervisors aren't there. And those are the folks out at lunch that are like, no, you can't use that bathroom. Right. So that's something that we have kind of in our strategies in a further slide, but just a reminder, like we got to make sure that we're educating those folks. PE teachers are a big one. You know, a lot of times with PE teachers, what I hear, and I've met just with groups of PE teachers on several occasions, and what comes up the most is fear of impropriety. Okay, so what I mean by that is I don't want to see bodies, right? Which is fair. And it's a conversation that's easy to have because it's easy to explain. Like, that's not what's happening here. Like, these kids aren't, you know, aren't trying to show you and everyone else, right? They're just trying to change for PE. So that really doesn't come up. It really hasn't come up at all. And then further to your point, another thing that you can do is this is like in your ongoing, because really what you're talking about there, that's a humiliating situation for the kid. Humiliation, how many of you have been humiliated in your life? That's a rough one. It's like extreme embarrassment tinged with shame, right? And lack of power, right? So just to pull out the feelings, because I'm a social worker, it's hard in that moment to find your voice. I don't know that I could. But having a safe person on campus that they can say, hey, or I've had students come to me and say, hey, this teacher will never use my affirmed name. Well, that's against the law, right? So then that becomes an employment issue, right? And so then you're talking to the administrator who is then having a conversation about what the law is, right? So there are things we can do around that. I also have worked with students specifically who are having some peer issues. And, you know, we've done modeling and role playing and like, okay, I'll be that guy and you be that guy. And okay, I come up to you and what do you say, right? And just kind of getting practicing some of that. So there's a lot of different strategies that we can use. But in that particular situation, I think it's really an education where we have to make sure that everybody is trained. Regardless of whether or not there is a kid on campus that we are aware of who identifies, everyone needs to know what's expected and what the law is, at least at the bare minimum, right? So some districts, you know, even if they can't get somebody out to every site to train, they're creating like Nearpod training, something that Vern is doing over at Santa Ana, with what the laws are and some examples of that. Also, the state is coming up with one. So at least people will have a baseline. It's not enough, but it's a baseline, right? It's way better than where we're at right now. Okay.
Do you think those parents even know this training is happening? Well, I mean, let me ask you guys. Do you know what professional development training the teachers in your school district are getting? Because I've been watching training this at least once, if not multiple times a week for 3 years. Training like this goes on in every school district in the country. Most people have no idea what professional development training their teachers are getting. So there are a couple ways you can find this out. Number one, the first thing I would do is go onto the school district website, search for equity, find the equity office. The equity office is typically the ones that are doing the professional development training. They're hiring the trainers. And that way you can at least get some idea. You can look up the trainers. You can find out how woke they are. You can go on their website. You can see what other kinds of training they're doing. You can find their social media. You can find videos of them. So if you know the names of the people that are giving the training in the school district, you can look up a lot of information about them. But then, of course, you can FOIA it. You can ask for it. Now, I have tried FOIAing like training slides from trainers, and the school districts won't give them to me because they say it's proprietary information. But you can find out how much the trainers were paid. You can get emails from the school district talking about the trainers. You can say, I want every email in the school district mentioning this trainer's name. So you can get a lot of information, but you can also just do social media searches to figure out the rest. Oh, I forget off the top of my head. Hang on 1 sec. I can find it. What did I put this in? Hang on. I put it in the article about that equity school. Hang on. I did an article about the public school for equity that was that really effed up, and we got them to take their entire website offline. Let's see. What is the name of the school district? It is Chino Valley School District is the school district that the Attorney General of California. It is Chino. You're right, Carol. Well done. It is the Chino Valley School District that is being sued by the state of California. And I'll pop a New York Post article in the chat that has more information about this. There you go. There you go over on Rumble.
Want to practice? Okay, so we talked to you a little bit, gave you some examples before about what an elementary school identity support plan might look like, right? Like a parent comes in, we talked about that a little bit. I gave you a little example of how some of those have gone, right? Just a couple other tips on that, like say you sit down, the parents in the room, the parent's emotional, you can take the kid somewhere else, right? Like maybe you have, typically there's an administrator in that or a school psych or both. And then maybe there's a counselor that can take the child to go see the prize box and the playground and all the super fun things that they're going to experience at school. They can go meet their teacher or something. Well, you kind of get those feelings out with the parent. And that works in secondary too. Honestly, I've had times where the student and the family member.
Hey, I appreciate that. I stream every day, Monday through Friday, doing stuff like this. On Saturday, we do Socialism Saturday at 6 p.m. I interact with my chat very frequently because I want to make sure people are getting their questions answered. So I do pay attention to it. Little bit of a boot camp because I'm going to be hard on you because I want you to learn. But yeah, come back anytime. We do this stuff all the time.
Is in the conversation and the family member is kind of airing all the anxiety. And I've said, you know what, how about if we get through this so that they can go back to class and then you and I can talk about this? Because quite frankly, there is not a whole lot of places for parents to go to get support on these topics or even education or understanding. There's some that are doing a great job and a lot of them were here today. So hopefully you picked up their flyers, but there's not a lot of options. And I personally have been through this and have called these places and can tell you it's hard to find support. There's a lot of information right now on the internet and on the news that is not accurate. But if you're trying to find out, oh my gosh, what's going on? Like, I really need some support. That's hard to find. So being able to kind of help parents find something that's appropriate or provide some of that, at least in an initial conversation, can be really, really helpful. Okay, so for a role play, we thought we would role play with you as our student. So those of you that have done a lot of these, what do you find as far as students being willing to share with you about this stuff? Fairly easy? Difficult? Depends? How's it go for you? I'm actually asking.
Depends on who's in the room.
Anybody else?
Yeah, people's gonna see this or who's gonna know about this. But if you have a good relationship with them, they're like, okay, these are my followers.
I can't hear what she's saying. Sounds really bad.
Yeah. But as you can say, usually when you're providing the space for them and they know that it's a safe space, and usually because they're like, whoa, you're asking me these questions? Like, wow, this is a great space in here. And it's more open.
Did y'all hear that?
No one's ever cared.
Over there?
No.
They just, Maureen says they just dump, right? Maybe they haven't been able to talk about it really. They've been holding this on their own, on their shoulders, heavy stuff, right? So just being there and being willing to listen and being supportive, and from the bat, from the get-go, letting them know that the process is confidential and that they're in charge of it, but you're there to do whatever you can to support them. I feel like that has been my experience too. Students are super willing to be open.
I think it also goes the other way where I've had students that are like, well, whatever you want, doesn't matter,
Yeah.
whatever you want. So like
That's
even
true.
going over
That's
the
interesting.
questions and then like revisiting it later, like this, like, let's talk about these things, but let's revisit it later. So they have, like, because if this is the first time, like it's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a
Yeah,
lot.
and it's like, well, they need almost a guide to walk them through that.
Yeah.
And they are their own guides sometimes, and this, so giving them a chance to pull those questions, think about it, and come back.
That's a great point. And you can offer to have them, they can take a copy if they're not afraid to take a copy at that first connection meeting. You can say, hey, you can look through this. This is some of the stuff that we might talk about, but it's really up to you what we talk about. And then that gives them a chance to think through it. Another thing is the meeting, I think we put on there, typically you're going to have.
Yes, Terry, this is basically correct. So if the parents don't want their child to be indoctrinated and they go to the she, them, would she even listen, much less support them? Well, she would listen. She would listen, but she's not on the parents' team. She, they is not on the parents' team. The first priority for all of these people is to affirm wow, I almost said genitals. I was like, that's not the right word for that at all. Let me try again. The first priority for all of these people that you're looking at is to affirm the gender identity of the student. That's all they care about. If they need to listen to the parent talk about their feelings about the gender identity, they'll do it. It's one of those things where like the parent will be there, they'll be in the office, they'll be pouring out their feelings about the situation. They think that they think that the school is on their side. They think they're all on the same team, but they're not all on the same team. What the administrator is doing is they're sitting there and they're nodding and smiling and they're being very nice and they're listening. And then the moment that parent leaves that office, they are going, if they get any sense that the parent is not going to go along with this, that will be used against the parent later. I promise you. I really hope people with kids understand the school district is not on your team. And I know that might be hard to hear. The school district is not on your team. The superintendent is not on your team. The principal is not on your team. The administrators are not on your team. The teachers are not on your team. You might think you are, but you are not. And I promise, if you ever need their help and you treat them as though you guys are on the same team, you are setting yourself up to get effed over. And I'm very sorry about that, but that's reality. You have to be aware that you are not on the same team. Do not give them the benefit of the doubt. Now, if they do something to prove themselves at some point, that's different. But do not give them the benefit of the doubt right off the bat. Coaster Trek says, do they teach the kids to hide their identity from the parents? Yes, they do. Yes, they do. They teach the kids that if the kid is in like an after school program, like a GSA club, a gender sexuality alliance, a queer student alliance, a rainbow club, things like that, which most of the time the parents don't know about. What they will teach the kid in those clubs is if you tell your parents that you're queer, they're not going to love you anymore and your home is not going to be safe. There are many parents this has happened to.
Have more than one meeting because like you're saying, sometimes it's the first time they've ever thought about that question before, right? And so they're not sure. And a lot of times what I get from students is I don't want to be a burden. I also get that from parents. We didn't want to call you because we didn't want to be a burden, right? Why didn't you call your principal, when your child was being bullied? We didn't want to create problems. We didn't want to be a burden. Right. So just being able to kind of reach out and address that quickly, I think can be helpful. Right.
Many of the students are also not aware of what rights they do have, and, what could be available. Maybe just at that moment they're being bullied or something else has come up. They want to address it, not even realizing, I could, ask for this or I could ask for this and I'd be supported. It's a whole new world.
All right, so let's role play, and I'm gonna just kind of be the facilitator, and then y'all can answer from, based on your experience of maybe what a student would say, or based on, what you kind of want to process around with the group. Does that make sense? So when I meet with a student, I always introduce myself first. My name is Lindsay. My pronouns are she, they. I work with the district. I work almost entirely with LGBTQI+ students. Do you know what that means? And I always say lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and intersex, even when they say yes, right? But I also say I don't exclusively work with those students. Not all the students I see identify, but a lot of them do. So then they kind of have a sense of where I'm coming from, but I don't want them to feel cornered, right? That I'm saying this is how you identify, right? Because I don't know. And I'll say, as you know, because they have to have given consent for me to be there in the first place. As you know, your whoever it is, reached out to me and asked me to come and talk over the identity support plan with you. Do you remember that? Yeah? Just kind of trying to get them talking. Do you mind telling me your name and identify? Or what pronouns you use? So y'all, what do you want to do? How about we use the name Alex?
Good non-binary name. Good non-binary name.
What identity or pronouns do we want Alex to have?
They, them.
They, them.
Haha.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that with me, Alex. I really appreciate that. Did you know that we have this process at school? Is this something that you want for people to start calling you at school, right? How old should Alex be?
14.
14? What's 14, a freshman? Yeah.
Someone in the crowd said when they said how old should Alex be, what I heard was 16. Someone said 16 and she immediately went to the person who said 14. How typical.
All right, let's do a freshman. In the bell curve
The
of risk,
younger, the better.
9th grade is way high.
The younger, the better.
So the first thing that we want to talk about is what's available to Alex at school. Did you know that we have the ability to change your name in our system?
Oh, isn't that nice?
All right, well, let me tell you how that works. Even before we get to that, we would say, Alex, who knows about this? Who do you live with?
My grandma.
Yeah.
Your grandma. Does your grandma know?
Yep.
Okay. How come?
She'd freak out. She's older. I don't.
Okay. You're concerned. Okay.
Because there's not a word transgender in our language.
There you go.
Oh, that's good.
That's a good one.
That one. That's why.
Okay. All right. So
They're role playing how these conversations go in schools, guys. You are seeing like behind the curtains of what the conversations are with the kids. Thank you, Orange County, California.
do you feel like you'd want to bring your grandmother in to this process?
Not yet. But this freshman in college. And eventually, when she would die.
Well, just so you know that everything we talk about here is confidential. And I'm not allowed to share anything that you share with me, with anyone else without your permission. And then I go through the confidentiality things. That's the social worker thing. So for those of you that don't do that or don't know those, it's like, y'all know those, right? Yeah. Unless you tell me that someone's hurting you, you want to hurt yourself, someone's hurting someone else, or you're wanting to hurt someone, then I got to get help, right? But everything else that we talk about, like as related to school,
I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. I'm sorry. Apparently we have weather in New Hampshire and the internet flickered. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm back. Let's go back to our presentation. I was like, what the fuck? I was like enjoying that. Okay, let's just rewind a little bit to make sure we get all of it. I was like, I'm gonna have to wait to watch the rest of this. No. Okay, let's continue. Never mind me.
You tell me that someone's hurting you, you want to hurt yourself, someone's hurting someone else, or you're wanting to hurt someone, then I gotta get help, right? But everything else that we talk about, like as related to school, that's between you and me. Okay? So you get to decide who's here. Is it okay if I bring your counselor into our meeting so that we can talk about this? Okay. Do you know your counselor?
Or is there someone else at your school that you talk to that you trust that you like to be here? Maybe your regards teacher and coach?
Sometimes students will want to bring in another family member, like an auntie or a cousin. Yeah, so you can give them that opportunity. The counselor is important because they control the schedule. And the schedule is very important, right? Counselors know which teachers are going to be better, right? Am I right? How many counselors in here? You know, you got the power.
Yes.
You got the power of the schedule, seriously. All right, so that's how we would set up the meeting, right? And then Alex has seen your face, knows who you are, knows we're going to talk about it, okay? And then when you get to the actual day that you're supposed to meet, you come in, you're meeting with the counselor. You know, you don't want to have like a big panel of people there, right? You want to make it as comfortable for the student as possible. A lot of times they'll go, you know, if there's like a table, a lot of times, you know, think about where you sit, those kinds of things. You want to sit next to the student, you know. I've been in meetings where there's like a lot of grownups. Sorry, that's a kid word. A lot of adults in the room. And I'll just go sit next to the student.
Thank you,
Because that's really,
I
this is who we're talking. This is what this is about, right? Give them the opportunity to have a voice. It makes clear that they're the one we're going to listen to. And so you can say, hey, how's it going? It's so good to see you. Thanks for meeting with me again. And then you're talking first probably about names and pronouns. So Alex, I know you shared with me that you use they, them pronouns. Does anybody know that at school? Is that something that you would like to consider changing at school? Did you know that we have the ability to change that? Alex, did you know?
No. Sorry.
So you can change or correct the name that we use for you here at school. And also your gender identity, right? You have that ability. When we do that, it will show up in Aries or Synergy or whatever you use in your SIS system. It's going to show up. So like your teachers will all see that. So if you go to math class, they're going to see Alex. If you go to language, they're going to see Alex, right? And so they'll know that's how they address you. It will also show up in Parent Square or the Parent Portal or the Parent View. I have a lot of kids who tell me no one's going to see that. So like in your specific experience with Alex, with the grandma,
She won't see.
who speaks a different language, is she looking at Parent Square?
Probably not.
If she hasn't translated.
She probably doesn't.
So they're making sure that the students know that if they fill out this official form with the school to change their names and pronouns, which their parents don't know about yet, but if they fill this out, then the information is going to go in the parent portal. And so they're making sure the students realize that that's going to disclose to their parents that they're non-binary, essentially. Yeah, it's a great point from Iris. And suddenly they get all this attention and all this VIP treatment. Suddenly they're getting all this positive affirmation, and everyone in the school is going to be affirming them. Every teacher is going to be affirming them. They're going to get all, they may just have been invisible before, just the kid in the back of the class, and now they're getting all this attention.
If it's available on her way.
So that's what, I mean, in my experience, I would say that that person's who they've described as their family isn't going to see that. But they might. And so I would also tell Alex, what that means also is like if you're late for school and the robo system calls your house, they're going to call for Alex, so they can think through this stuff. And if Alex is like, this is a problem. Wait, hold on. This is a problem. These are things that I cannot risk. Great. Okay. So here's some other things that we can do. You can notify your teachers. We can help you with that if you want to. We can make it. We can help you make it so that the majority of people here are familiar with your affirmed identity. And that's what you're going by here.
So now what the social worker is doing, because the child doesn't want the information going into the parent portal that they're identifying as trans or non-binary with different names at school. So that idea has been kibosh. There's going to be no official plan, but they're going to go through the back door and still inform all of the teachers that the child is non-binary and is using a different name, and still make sure everyone in the school knows about it. They're just not going to do an official form so it doesn't have to go in the parent portal, so the parents still aren't notified. And remember, guys, the training we're watching right now is funded by the federal government. And we know that because they told us it was funded by the federal government at the beginning of the training. Now everyone knows but the parents. Exactly.
So you're giving them options, trying to figure out how you can best work within the systems that we have to navigate. So even though in the state of California, the student has the right to keep this private from anyone.
Parents.
Our systems aren't there yet. Right? And there's a lot of us that have been advocating for this for a long time, and they're still just not there yet. Right? How many emails, how many phone calls, how many, liaisons. And sometimes it's like, well, this system is based in a different state. A couple of them are based here and they still haven't fixed this stuff. Right? So it is something that we need to go through with the student. We really need to get to know the student to know what's going to best support them. And this is something that frequently changes over time. Because again, you'll have a student who comes out at school and they become a little bit more comfortable. And so they're comfortable being out in other areas as well. Does that make sense?
So in the event that Alex wants their pronouns changed,
yes,
and grandma does not, who do we defer to?
Who do you think?
Students.
Yeah.
Wait, what did they say?
Yeah, the kid gets to choose. It's their identity. Yeah, absolutely. Good question. Thank
you.
Wait,
what was the question? Something about grandma is not the thing referred to and the kid gets to choose. What did that actually say? Sorry, the sound sucked there.
So in the event that Alex wants their pronouns changed,
yes,
and grandma does not, who do we defer to?
Who do you think?
Students.
If Alex, the new non-binary student, wants their pronouns changed and grandma, who is the primary caretaker, the parent effectively, does not, the student wins. The student is affirmed.
Yeah. Yeah, the kid gets to choose. It's their identity. Yeah, absolutely. Good question. Thank you. So one of the things that we always want to assess is safety. Right? Is there anywhere that you don't feel safe? Yeah. And then we'll say which class or which classes. Is there any particular teacher? Is there, and then you're going to have a conversation about that. Where do you feel safe? Where do you not feel safe? Who knows about this at school? Do they have peer support? Right? Do they have adult support? And we know, we talked about, we quoted the parent that said it's like walking into a hailstorm. And Heidi was talking about having these umbrellas of safety, right? So it's like you have this affirming staff person over here. You have this group of friends at lunch. Each of those places provide support, right? They're all necessary. The more that we can get and the more we can connect them, the better. So kind of assessing that. What is your circle of safety? What is your circle of support inside and outside of school? Okay, and then facilities. What facilities are you using at school? Do you eat or drink? I always ask that. Do you eat at school? Do you drink water? What do you guys think?
No.
I'm not hungry.
You're not hungry?
You don't drink water
Not
at
that a lot.
school?
I'm not hungry. I just not hungry at school.
After school, but
Yeah.
I like.
Are you willing?
Yeah, I like food. Yeah.
Do you drink while you're on campus? Do you drink
No,
water?
Water.
So a lot of our kids will avoid that stuff so they can avoid the restroom, right? So bringing that up, pointing that out, asking about that. Is there a restroom on campus that you feel safe using? You know, have you ever been into, so this student uses they, them pronouns. Let's say they tell us they identify as non-binary. Have you ever been into the boys' bathroom or the girls' bathroom? Have you seen our all gender restrooms here? Right? We all have all gender restrooms at all of our sites.
Yeah.
In our schools that were built 100 years ago. But we do have some, right? And sometimes a student will feel safe there and sometimes they won't. And it kind of depends. Like if a student wants to use a bathroom in the health office and you're at a busy high school and you walk in and there's 14 kids waiting and there's a nurse there and the student feels like they have to say, hey, remember me? I'm the kid who has the special thing on the thing and you let me remember. Psst, that's a barrier. That kid is not going to use that bathroom, right? So having ways, like a lot of times your nurses will have a pass. You just give that student a pass and that student might feel comfortable just showing their pass, going and using the restroom, If that's a restroom that they've chosen, we can't force any of them. We can't say, oh, you have to use this one. It's really up to them because again, they become the expert in their own safety and risk, right?
The classes also help with the activity supervisors or people who are not trained. They know that a pass means there's kind of price of when the situation goes. So that's also.
All schools, are we required to have an all gender restroom? Because I thought we weren't.
So any single bathroom where it's a one person at a time kind of a facility should be labeled as all gender, or a lot of people are doing gender neutral, some sort of labeling like that. Any gender kind of a thing. That's a building code. So a lot of schools are updating that. Some schools have a lot of authority over this stuff. Like they have a lot of discretion. Okay. So I have APs that have put in number locks, and they'll give them to students. Or I have APs that have let student have a key, right? And that was to a staff bathroom in a situation, it was a small kind of continuation school environment. But so, administrators can come up with solutions here. And we haven't had any issues with that. Sometimes people are worried about issues that are really discipline issues. And then you would address it as a discipline issue, which is not related to this thing that we're doing here, right? So.
I even had one with a code, security code. So the student had the security codes and it worked.
That's good. So, but like the old stall bathrooms, the multiple stall bathrooms are required to be all gender.
They're not required, but they can be.
And
they can be.
Designate an area of.
That's correct.
The by gender, whatever model for we can convert that into.
Yes, you can't. You may have multi-stall, right? So the bathrooms that we're all used to as public restrooms that you go in and there's like 3 or 4 different stalls. You can have those be all gender. And there's school districts who do have that. That's what students are going to find when they go to college. P.S. There's a lot of that at college, right? But there are school districts that are doing that now. I know people at your school district have considered that. Yeah, so it's definitely an option.
There's also new legislation that is coming that will say that schools have to have all gender.
Did you hear that?
Sorry.
How can we as a city do anything about this if the majority of people aren't here looking at this crap? Sandy, you have described my utter frustration with the conservative right, like in a really succinct way. Because the left isn't going to look at this. The left doesn't care. I don't expect the left to look at this. I expect the right to look at it. The right should care, I know there are conservatives here. I don't want to make it seem like anyone, like there are no conservatives who care. But I have essentially at this point given up getting the conservative right to take any of this seriously. They don't want to sit through it. It's boring. It's hard to watch. I don't want to. It makes me want to throw up. I'm sorry. If sitting here and watching a training makes you want to throw up, you are a snowflake and you deserve to lose. This is why I have a really short span of patience for people. Because if they don't care enough to know what's going on, then there ain't nothing any of us can do about it. It doesn't seem like most conservatives care because this is not owning the libs. That's exactly right. They will do libs of TikTok every single day. Most of the stuff on libs of TikTok isn't even real. I mean, they are real TikTok videos, but it's like they're videos that are made to be clickbait. So it's like, does it reflect reality? Well, reality often looks a lot more like this than it does like libs of TikTok. This is how they're doing it. We're seeing how they're doing it. It is the quiet, boring stuff that no one wants to watch. But the right won't look at it because it's boring. I don't want to. It makes me want to throw up. I don't know how you watch this stuff, Carlin. I don't want to sit through it. It's too hard. I hear this every day. Why aren't you nicer to people? You have a mean tone. Why aren't you nicer? If you're nicer, we'll watch it. It's boring. It's hard. We don't want to. I hear literally every day. You want to know why I don't have a nice tone? Because I don't think it makes a difference what my tone is. And why do I care more about your kids than you do? So I wish I had an answer. I really do. I wish I had an answer to how to get more people to look at this stuff because I can't get their influencers to talk about it because the things that I show you disrupt every narrative they're selling their audience. And they think I'm too mean and I have a tone and I spend way too much time fighting with people. So I can't get them to show it. I can't get conservatives to come here and watch it because it's too long and boring. I don't know. If anyone has any ideas, please let me know. Because how I see my job right now is I'm finding the content and I'm showing the content and I'm explaining the content and I will take any question that people have and I will make sure people understand the language. But if people don't want to show up and they don't want to sit here and they don't want to listen and they don't want to put on their big boy and girl pants and do what is required, then I can't force them and I don't care to try anymore. I tried for a long time. It only made me really angry and bitter. And so now I'm just going to show up and show people what's going on. And that's all I can really do. And if you guys want more people to see it, then I suggest you share it. I suggest you talk about it. I suggest you use your influencers and demand they show their audience because it means nothing coming from me because they think, oh, she's just that self-serving evil bitch on the internet that just fights with people all the time. So you guys send it out. Send it to your influencers. Send it to your friends. Send it to your family. Post it in your Facebook groups. Use the clips I make. I make clips all the time. There are a metric ton of clips on my Substack already. Go to my Substack, go to the video vault, share the clips, share the articles. When I tweet things, share them out. Because conservatives only care about things that go viral on Twitter. That's literally all they care about. I don't have any other answers other than that. I really wish I did. If anyone has any ideas, let me know. Yeah, conservatives always think they call me a Democrat or a socialist. They're convinced that I'm a socialist because they've smeared me so badly that most of them think I'm a socialist. That's real. So they shot themselves in the foot there, didn't they? Anyway. We have about 10 minutes left of this, guys. So if you made it through this one, this was certainly a marathon. Thank you for coming out. Again, I stream Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. on YouTube, on X, on Rumble. I stream on Saturdays at 6 p.m. for Socialism Saturday. So let's finish up the last 10 minutes of this. Please make sure you mount the like button if you haven't already. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel wherever you're watching if you have not already. And let's wrap it up for today before we enter a new dystopian hell tomorrow.
So we require.
But if it's to be built, or there, it will have to be.
Most schools don't have spatial funds to build more bathrooms, so they'll just convert the bathrooms. So
I feel like when this went into effect, I don't know if there are any people here, but like
Bye, Sid. Have a good one.
bathrooms were, the signs were removed and it was all gender, and people like were upset and took down the signs and were like, no, this was a female bathroom, you will not use my bathroom as males. I'm like, we're all adults here, this is within the staff's area. And then you had to key into that bathroom too. It was like, you had to key into two places, like, why are you upset about this? I don't know, it was a huge thing.
And some places it's not a thing at all.
Yeah.
So it kind of depends on the culture at your site.
Depends on.
And-
Preparing staff education, have a meeting beforehand, have a.
Yeah, there's that too. It's just kind of changed. They're like ripped
Change
off the
always-
wall, and you can see like the remnants of the paint that had been there, whatever. So, yeah, it was very like shocking, and I think that is the major thing, is just informing people, letting them know, this is gonna happen. Yeah, we're gonna do this on last day.
And really, best case scenario.
Hang on, I got a super chat from Tayton. Tayton, thank you, appreciate it. Do you think parents are more inclined to accept non-binary for their kid because it doesn't always involve surgery or drugs? Well, I mean, they say all the time being trans doesn't involve surgery or drugs either. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know the answer to that, Tayton. I think that accepting a non-binary identity is dangerous because, remember, non-binary is a far left political ideology. It has nothing to do with like non-binary. I'm sorry. I've met people who say they're non-binary. And so I don't mean to offend anyone. I really don't. This is my personal opinion. I don't believe non-binary is a real thing. So I think if parents are accepting a non-binary identity, I think that's the same thing as accepting if their kid comes home and says they're a unicorn. Like, non-binary is a made up far leftist idea in order to destabilize the nuclear family. Now, do I blame kids who are fed this information by their teachers? No, I don't blame them because they are victims of the cult, just like any other victim of a cult. If a 14-year-old says, I'm non-binary, the question I have is, who even taught you what that means? Because you didn't come up with that on your own. Who taught you what that is? When did you learn it? What exactly do you think that means? But that's not the kid's fault. That is the fault of the adults. So I don't know. I don't know the answer to this question, but I do appreciate the super chat.
So having more options is better, right? It would be great if we had lots of options. So like say Alex, our non-binary kid,
hang on.
has a place where they feel comfortable. They're not
Hang on, Iris, this isn't exactly correct. This isn't exactly correct, and you need to know the difference. Non-binary is not a gateway drug. Non-binary is not the gateway drug to trans. We don't care if people are trans. That's not the problem. If someone is trans, as though, which means to transition from a man to a woman or a woman to a man, that is still upholding the gender binary. And so I don't believe that anyone under 18 should be medicalized, but like, I am far less concerned about someone being trans, and I think adults need should have the ability to live their own lives, like whatever they want to do. It's their body, their life, whatever. Non-binary is not a gateway drug. Non-binary is the drug. Non-binary is heroin. Like figuratively, YouTube, figuratively. I'm not saying it's actually heroin. Like, non-binary is the drug. Non-binary is the goal. Non-binary is the far left political ideology. These people are pissed off when trans people don't also identify as queer. So I know it's like it's a really important distinction, and it's really important to understand that. Non-binary is the socialist endpoint. Non-binary is what they want everyone to be. So it's not harmless. Rottweiler says, I think social transition is their Mott and Bailey. The more indefensible position is presented first, and social transition is their middle ground. That's exactly right, Rottweiler. That's exactly right. Because they will tell parents that they're not going on medication. There's no surgery. They're just socially transitioning. There's nothing wrong with socially transitioning. This is like when you dyed your hair or dressed like a boy or any of these things. There's nothing wrong with them experimenting with their gender. And and to be honest, guys, there isn't actually, like, I mean, let's listen. I have gone back and forth throughout my life. There are some times when I've been super feminine. There are some times when I've been super masculine. I'm on my, like, descending through a kind of feminine, like I'm moving from a masculine arc in my life back towards to a more feminine arc at the moment. But like, there's nothing wrong inherently with experimenting with gender and experimenting with looks and doing certain things at different points in your life, like whatever. There's sometimes when I've been really girly. There's sometimes when I've really been not girly. There are sometimes when I've been in between. But the point here is not that are they girly, are they not girly, are they masculine, are they not masculine, like whatever. The point here is by getting them into non-binary or queer, they are trying to get them into a far left political ideology. But it's being presented as like harmless and a better course of action than, going on gender affirming hormones.
Boys and girls, right? Okay, in the interest of time, because I see our panelists are trickling in over here and we want to get their voices to you, I want to wrap this up, but extracurricular activities on that, are they in ROTC? Are they in, dance, drama, sports? Do they want to be cheer? All of that stuff. Are there overnights? Thinking through that kind of stuff with the student. Typically, the students have thought about that. And they have some ideas on what feels safest to them. And those typically work, right? So, okay. And then the last thing I want to say on this is, we kind of already talked about how I end it, which is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to bring up? And then I also will say, is there anything that you feel like you can't do, right? But the other thing is on the back, there's a spot for you to write action items and who's responsible and when they're supposed to happen. So if a student is making a name change in their school information system, I typically will go over there, because even if you're lucky enough to be in a district where those registrars and office managers have all been trained, that was probably last year, and this is maybe the second time they've done it since. They probably don't remember, right? So I just have that with me, and I just take it over there and go, hey, do you mind if we do this real fast? It takes 30 seconds, done. You can make sure it's done right. You can say, hey, can you print one out so I can show it to the student, right? And then you're able to give them their demographics page with their name corrected, right? And that's kind of like the best part.
I have a question about that.
Sure.
When things you get changed on Gary's, in my experience, it's like you have like an AKA and there's like a parentheses.
That's different.
That's
a different.
Alex used to be Alejandra.
Yeah, that's when it's incorrectly done.
Okay. So
that's an alias, and that doesn't meet privacy requirements.
So that it's not an alias.
It's not an alias.
That was my question.
Yeah, these systems have developed ways where you can do a name change, right?
And it's not like previously known as.
No. It should say Alex.
Okay, good.
And then the student will have told you whether or not they want to change the middle name. Sometimes the middle name is very gendered, and sometimes they want to update it, sometimes they don't. So you know exactly what it's supposed to say, and then you're able to show it to them. Most students don't know that they have the option to pick non-binary or to correct their that they don't know that that's a legal gender. So you always tell them that, these are the three that are available.
So
That's a big one. Feel like our students truly.
So most of the time, school districts should have this in process where when you make this update in Aries, it should filter out to all the things. It should filter to their badge, it should filter to their email address, it should filter to their online personas. If it doesn't, then those are things that you need to correct. So you can tell the student when you
One more time. We've got 5 minutes left. 5 minutes left. The weather doesn't want us to see the end of this webinar.
Haven't updated to their priorities and areas, but we know on the IDSP that it should.
I have multiple internet connections, but I have one internet service provider. And so if the internet service provider gets knocked out, then all of the internet connections get knocked out. But I have like 3 different internet connections. It's not my fault. This has been going on since the other day.
So the student has the right to stay based on their identified gender. That's their legal right to do that, regardless of what it says in Aries.
Okay. That's good to know.
And it depends on where you're going. Like sometimes your contact, say it's 6th grade camp. A lot of times I get phone calls. It's like, oh, the camp doesn't know that, right? So, well, here is the code. Send this to them. A lot of times camps have dealt with this stuff, so they actually have ideas and have some,
Policy.
Correct. So if it has to come up, then that can be a conversation. But they don't even need to know. It's not necessary that they know. In fact, based on privacy concern.
Oh, the video was choppy earlier? You guys should have told me. I didn't realize it was choppy. It looked fine on my end.
We just adopted a new textbook in our district, and it's virtually impossible for students to, once they've registered for this textbook, to change any sort of information that they signed up with. So if they misspell their name, I had to go through like a 45-minute chat to get their name corrected. And I posed this question of like, hey, I have this kid, Alex, that wants to be known as Alejandra now. And what do I do about that? And they gave me the runaround. They're like, oh, we need to escalate this. And it's been 2 or 3 weeks that, I'm like, well, what's going on with this? So how do we now navigate that? That's like a very specific question.
It's an advocacy piece. Yeah.
I know, it seems like very no-brainer. Like, come on, really? Like they had them last year and now they're identifying as something else now, and they should be able to change that. And it's because they created their profile last year that
you have the opportunity also to elevate that at your district into your curriculum folks. Yeah.
What district?
Indiana Unified.
Oh, okay. So, talk to me and I will get David Lofink on it and we'll have it settled for you.
David Lofink.
Yeah. And I'm Vern Reinhardt.
Oh, hi, Vern.
Hi.
I've met you via Zoom.
Yes.
Hi.
I wonder if we can get into their Zooms.
About the implementation process, right? There's some suggestions we're going to talk about, but there will be things on the implementation plan that need follow up. And ideally, if the student is open to tell the teachers, we recommend that there is following of the individual teachers.
Correct.
So they know exactly
no
what's going
option
on.
other than get
Keeping
them out.
in the loop makes them feel like they're part of the process, and so often they're more willing to be supportive and accommodate. The other thing is when we're looking at the idea of being uncomfortable and unsafe, they're not safe. Yeah. And so students, whether they're our gender diverse students or our cisgender students, might say, I feel unsafe. I feel uncomfortable. I don't want to be in the staff room. I don't want to change in front of these students. Either way, and I hate to always talk about the restroom, but we're going to go back there one more time. But the all gender restrooms are also great for cisgender students who say they're not comfortable.
Yeah.
So when someone brings up why are we, having this restroom for this one particular group, that restroom is actually useful or helpful for all students of all gender. And so again, we just want to emphasize that unsafe is much different or uncomfortable. And often the adults on campus are really the folks who feel the most uncomfortable. Our students are really supportive and really allies and standing up for their peers and often pushing them forward. They're not uncomfortable, so let's bring them a part of the process.
It's the adults that are the problem. It's not the kids. It's the adults that we have to convince.
So, again, working with the parents, just real quickly, just enforce it, reiterate the laws, that there's a code, but again, that this is about including all students in education and giving everyone an opportunity to thrive, and that this is about that mutual trust.
And we know you want to talk about parents. We want to talk about parents too, but we want to get to a break so we can get to the panel, and we'll definitely talk about that with our panel in a minute, okay?
I want to... I want to see the panel. I want to see the panel. I want the follow-up video. I guess that's all we get for today, though. Well, we covered a lot. That was a lot. Lots of good language stuff where they are trying to eliminate gendered language. We got a whole walkthrough role play of what happens in the state of California when a kid decides to change their gender without telling parents. That was pretty great. Did everyone learn something today? That's going on in school districts all over the country. This is why we watch professional development training. It might be boring, but it tells you what's going on. It tells you what the policies are. It tells you what the procedures are. They say the quiet part out loud because no one's crazy enough to sit around and watch professional development training except for me. That's what you guys got when you got an organizational psychologist, right? So we had a comment. I just want to bring it up. I addressed it briefly on the screen, but I want to bring it up again if I can find it. Kenneth says, so there is really no option other than to get your kids out of public schools. There is no option other than to get your kids out of public schools. That's correct. I'm shaking my head no because I'm saying there is no other option other than to get your kids out of public schools. The public schools are not fixable. They've been broken for decades. It is not possible to fix them in our lifetimes. That's how problems like this work. If you ignore a problem and it gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, you can't snap your fingers and undo it. And anyone who tells you you can is lying to you. Any conservative, and again, I rag on conservative influencers because they lie to their audience about this all the time. School choice will save us. No, it won't. Anti-CRT laws will save us. No, they won't. Abolishing DEI will save us. No, it won't. Because they'll just change the name and they'll do it another way. Or they ignore the law entirely. Listen, man, I have worked with 2 state governments where there are anti-woke laws, anti-CRT laws on the books. And I have given them incontrovertible proof that school districts are breaking those laws. It's not up for discussion or debate about whether or not they're breaking the laws. And these are conservative governors. And they will not enforce their own laws. And then the left just keeps going and going and going and going and going. So you got to stop waiting for people to save you. You got to save yourself and you got to save your kids. Get them out of the schools. Even if you are in a state that has these laws, and even if they feel inclined on rare occasion to do their effing job and enforce the laws, it's still going to take a long ass time for even that process to play out. This happens in private school. Listen, look at Joshua. Let me show you what's happening in private schools. Let me show you. I know what they're doing in the private school training too. Why do I know what they're doing in the private school training? Oh, look at this. Look at this over on the Substack. Look at this. I wrote this on Saturday. I took a look at the schedule for the upcoming annual conference for the National Association of Independent Schools. These are private schools. There is a lot of woke training on that schedule, and you guys can go over and look at this article on the Substack. I will pop it in to the chat if you want to go and see it, because we're not going to go through the whole thing. One of the presentations at the private school conference is called Doing DEI While Trying Not to Make the News. This is all for 2,000 private schools are in this association. Does it kind of seem to anyone else like they're trying to do DEI without people knowing about it? And I'm just going to scroll through. Here are all the woke presentations that are at this private school conference that's happening in about a month. You can go on their website and look. You can go see all the descriptions. These are all woke socialist presentations, all of them. That's all at this private school conference. So the idea that private schools are the answer is not accurate. I'm sorry. All right, guys, that's all I have for today. I'm glad we made it through. The internet held up until the very end. I'm sorry that the video was choppy. It wasn't choppy on my end, so I don't know what was happening. So I do apologize if that was annoying for people, but I hope you at least got enough out of it that it was okay. So tell me next time the video's choppy, because I don't know, like I had my VPN running, so that probably was the issue. But just let me know if that happens in the future, and I will try to fix that. But guys, as a reminder, please make sure you are subscribed to my Substack, Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. Support my work for $8 a month or $80 a year. I really can't do it without you guys. You guys allow me to spend 3 hours on a Wednesday afternoon looking through all this stuff, and I really appreciate it. No need to apologize. You're cool. You're cool. I will be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. And remember, guys, it's the last chance in the Unwoke Art Store to get this month's version of the Unwoke Wiki shirt, which is really, really awesome. And the Whiteness Means Capitalism shirt. Both of those things are leaving the store in about 4 hours. 4 more hours. And then they go back into the limited edition vault. Maybe they'll be seen again. Maybe they won't. It all depends on how I feel about it. You are at the whim of a fickle woman on that one. But those are available in the Unwoke Art Store now, and they do go to fund the work I'm doing. You can also get the Trump Valentine's Day Grab Me by the Heart for a couple more days. And I'll see you guys tomorrow at 5 p.m. Take care. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.